Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Monday, March 23rd. We are early. We are starting off the last week of March early. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about in the past hour. So many things have changed from where we thought the market was going to open. If you woke up early today, you probably saw the market being red. I did not wake up at 4:30. I woke up at 5:50. Missed 4:30. I took a screenshot to prove I woke up at 5:50, 5:51. So I did wake up earlier, but it was not the 4:30 time I wanted. But at 5:51, it was ugly. And then by 7:51, it wasn't as ugly. So we will talk about what has happened. It could get uglier when the market opens in the next 45 minutes, but I am very curious to see how this market opens up, given what has happened in the past couple hours. And obviously, it's going to lead to a lot of implications in regards to what is happening on the war. We will talk more about that in a second, but let's go through some price action real quick. VG was pushing 1750 in the pre-markets. Now it's down 3.6%. The S&P 500 is up 2%. We will talk about why. Bitcoin getting a move right there at 70,000. This thing was almost below 67 last night. You see a pretty nasty candle right there, $2,600 from the lows, almost $3,000 on the candle, 70.6. Bitcoin's up, Ethereum's up, the Qs are up 2%, Meta's up, Micron's up, Tesla, Palantir, Robinhood, Nebius, Nvidia, SOFI, Intel, Dell, Figma, Amazon, Microsoft, everything is green. It was more green 20 minutes ago, and some of the green has started to fade, which begs the question on if the green will even hold up when we open the markets. But we're green, and there is a reason for why we're green that we will get into. But it's nice to at least see that futures dump that we have last night kind of get faded based on new developments around this Iran war that have come out this morning. And we're going to get into if any of this stuff is actually sustainable. Crude is down. It was up in the morning, pushing above $100. It's down 7%, back to 91. Gold and silver were dumping pretty hard in the market open, or in the sort of pre-market opens at around 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Gold and silver are still down. Silver actually just flipped green. Gold was down 5%. Now it's only down 1%. So what happened? Why is this taking place? Why did we go from deep bloody red? I mean, again, if you woke up 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it was deeply, Nvidia was getting ready to go below 170. What changed? Well, let's start off with the show. Again, good morning to everybody. Yeah, this tweet from President Trump about an hour ago. I'm going to read the whole tweet, and then we'll get into all the implications of this. I am pleased to report. This tweet had a lot of grammatical and spelling issues. He meant to say pleased, but nonetheless, I am pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, that sentence is going to really matter in a second, which, he meant to say W-H-I-C-H, but he ended up writing which will continue throughout the week. I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period. Doesn't this sound very similar to the we're going to stop reciprocal tariffs for 90 days? Subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Thank you for your attention to this matter. For those that are confused about what he's talking about, this was the tweet over the weekend. You might have missed it, where he tweeted on Saturday, if Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. So Saturday, Trump says Iran has 48 hours. And last night on the Future Show, we started discussing, okay, well, 24 of the hours are done, which means you got 24 hours left. Is Iran going to comply? Or is Trump going to actually start bombing a bunch of power plants, which, even if it doesn't directly affect oil infrastructure, it's not going to be good for the perception of the war, because the acceleration of this narrative continuing will likely lead to oil prices being higher. And when we woke up this morning, there was no resolution on this post that came out from Saturday. So oil was up. Stocks were down. Yields were pumping. We were looking at 4.5 on the 10-year. Right now, we're at 4.358. So things have at least calmed down a little bit. But then we got the Trump taco, if you want to call it that, where he says, look, we're not going to be attacking them because we've had productive discussions. However, and this is why the market is not blistering green like it was as soon as this tweet came out, Iran comes out and says There have been zero direct or indirect contact or conversations with President Trump. Trump is trying to buy time in the Iran war. Trump backed off the power plant strikes after Iran's warning. Trump's comments are psychological warfare, and Hormuz won't return to normal, aka we're not going to open up the strait if psychological warfare continues. This is madness. Like, we are all living and investing in a time where we are living through madness. Now, Iran could be lying. That is also very possible. They've lied many times in the past. But if they're right, which, again, I think that's going to take a bit more reporting over the next 24 hours to figure out who's actually telling the truth here. Did Trump legitimately talk to a bunch of Iranian representatives? A lot of people are wondering who the hell is he even talking to. He's definitely not talking to the Ayatollah. So, like, who is exactly the point of reference here in terms of the conversation? Or did he not talk to anybody? Because if he didn't talk to anybody, if there were no meaningful, constructive, important discussions that led to the inevitable delaying of the power plant strikes, that means Iran basically called his bluff. And then Iran is basically saying, yeah, we don't think you're going to do this because your 10-year bonds are going up. Your credit markets are freaking out. Your equity markets are going down. We have nothing to lose. We don't care about our people. We don't care about our stock market. Our currency is already inflated to the moon. So if you bomb our power plants, we're just going to keep fighting. And you are going to accelerate the tensions of the war. And so from Iran's perspective, if you believe they're telling the truth, that they have had zero conversations with Trump and all of this is absolute nonsense, then they're basically saying you're not going to do what you think you're going to do because you're already in a tough situation. And if that's true and Trump ended up talking without any meaningful, like, real discussion with Iranian officials, then basically he's conceding that he was not able to strike. And if he wasn't able to strike, the psychological warfare / perception of the United States being weaker in this situation starts to get a lot more attention. Trump did give an interview to Joe Kernan on CNBC, and here's what he told him this morning around the post that he made on Truth Social.
Had productive discussions. I just spoke to the president. President Trump said the discussions have been very good over the last 48 hours, very intense discussions. I said, well, with whom? I thought, there aren't a lot of leaders left alive. He said they have representatives, obviously, that's been one of the things that Iran has tried to say, that we've got a structure more than any one person. The president went on to say or insist that this is regime change because it's totally different people that were involved in the last regime. I would imagine some of the people are the same. This is the president's take on that, insisting that it's regime change. He went on to say the great meetings, great conversations, and hopes that within the next 5 days something very substantive can be arrived at for the end of hostilities. So
it's a game of he said, she said right now. I'm getting an update from Axios right here. Axios reports that Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan have been, quote unquote, passing messages between the U.S. and Iran. Oil prices are actually going down right here. Crude is dropping. Let me get some more details on this. If this is true, then maybe these are the representatives that Trump has been talking about. Even though they're not necessarily Iranian representatives. Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan have been passing messages between the U.S. and Iran over the past 2 days in an effort to de-escalate. Senior officials from the three countries held separate talks with White House senior envoy Steve Witkoff, an Iranian foreign minister. The U.S. source says the mediation is going on and making progress. The discussion is about ending the war and resolving all outstanding issues. We hope to have answers soon. WTI crude still at 91. It did fall below 90 for a second, but that is the latest update from Axios. So once again, the question is, who do you believe? And more importantly than who do we believe, who does the market end up believing? Is Iran telling the truth that there have been no real discussions with Trump, which technically they're not wrong if this Axios report is true, right? Because if they're having discussions through Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan as the mediator, then yeah, they're not explicitly talking to Trump, but they're also not exactly correct, because if there is a conversation that's happening, even if it's flowing through other intermediaries, then there is some level of potential peace talks that are correct, which is what Trump talked about in this latest tweet. Now, if the markets believe that this is true, then I think we're probably going a bit higher today. S&P 500 at the highs of the day now, 2.20%. Just given, again, as soon as we get the taco, the market's going to be ready to move on. If it's not true, which you can't rule out the issue that it's not true yet, we've just seen too many things go against us, then, I mean, this 2% move gets faded and oil probably spikes back up higher, which again, this game of like, oh, it's going to end. Oh, it's not going to end. It's going to end. It's not going to end. And the gyrations we've seen in the stock market, this has happened for the past 7 days at this point. Today is just the more lively and entertaining version of this entire situation playing out. 661.70 on the S&P. It feels good, obviously, to see some green and to see some broader momentum, but I think it's really going to take the resilience of the next 5 hours to see how much the market actually believes in this versus how much the market thinks this is just another moment to buy time in the midst of this war that's playing out. Trump right now says to Fox Business, the recent Iran talks happened last night. So Trump is putting a time frame on it in terms of when the discussions happened, which ironically, right before the deadline ended for his 48-hour warning. He also said Iran wants to make a deal badly. It could be within 5 days or sooner. Wow. Trump also says that Iranian media is lying. So 3 things from Trump. The recent talks happened last night. Number 2, Iran wants to make a deal badly. Could be within 5 days or sooner. I mean, if that happens by the end of this week, we did have some poly market bets last night saying that a ceasefire will happen by March 31st, which, you know, maybe there are some insiders putting on those bets, which could be a signal. And then Trump says Iranian media is lying. Back and forth. Back and forth, and all of us as equity investors are in the middle of dealing with everything that's happening. Why 5 days? Is he trying to pump the market? Well, obviously Trump does. I don't even think it's about the credit market or the stock market at this point. I think it's about the credit markets. We cannot have these yields pushing the levels that they're pushing up. Stocks going down and yields going up, which means people are selling stocks and bonds, is just not a scenario for success. In fact, this is exactly what happened at the height of the Liberation Day panic back in April. And that is also exactly when we got the pivot and the taco. So I think more than anything, the thing that is influence over Trump is this 10-year yield. And I think he gets the knock on his door to the Oval Office from Basent when that 10-year really starts getting to a point where it is literally unmanageable. And that's when he starts to pivot. And maybe that happened this morning to an extent. And if bond yields continue to spike, maybe that continues to happen. But as of now, this is what we've got going on in regards to the war. Also, one of the foreign ministries of Iran said Trump's remarks are meant to decrease energy prices and gain time for his military plans. They also said there are initiatives to decrease tensions, but our response is that the U.S. should be the interlocutor as we did not initiate the war. So you have the foreign ministry of Iran saying, once again, Trump's remarks are meant to decrease energy prices in the short term. We will not open the Strait of Hormuz. He wants to gain time for his military plans. And we do think there are ways to decrease tensions, but the U.S. should be leading those ways as they were the people who initiated the war. It is a lot to manage. It is a lot to manage when we put the pieces of this puzzle together. Let me put a red or green poll in the chat and see what people think. I mean, well, here's the broader question as I put up this poll. And I asked this question on X, and I think it's really important. I would love to know some thoughts of what people have to say. If you aren't long, now that we have this new piece of data this morning around the potential taco, would you go long? If you are long, would you de-risk? Do you think this is an opportunity to potentially take some bets off the table and not have to deal with being as long as you are, given this might be an exit opportunity for you to get out? And if you're short, would you double down? If you're double down, I think that is the interesting kind of questions, or those are the interesting sort of 3 frames of reference when we think about how the market will react to what's playing out today. Green or red today? What do people think? Do we hold on to this green, or do we end up flipping red? If we do flip red, we're going to lose 2% on the S&P right now from the pre-markets, which is not going to be fun if that ends up happening. It feels like this is too much manipulation. I do agree that it feels manipulative. Now, granted, I think this is also not just manipulation, but this is Trump being Trump, and the markets are just going to react in crazy swings up or down, regardless of if you feel there's any intrinsic level of manipulation, because this is how Trump operates, and this is how we've gotten used to Trump operating. It's just after Liberation Day, we had so much time to not have to deal with this back and forth Twitter policy governance. And it came back in Venezuela, then it came back with Greenland, then we thought it was done, and now it's back with Iran, and it just doesn't look like it's necessarily ending anytime soon. So this is what we have in the context of the war. We'll probably have more updates on in a little bit. We do have a bunch of different headlines to get to in terms of some earnings and other business updates across the broader market, but this is the biggest deal. It looks like we have some resemblance of a Trump taco. Whether or not he actually talked to Iranian officials to make this taco legit is yet to be seen. I'm sure we'll get more details on it throughout the day when we have more reporting. But for those that are just joining, Trump tweets this morning that he will not be attacking Iranian power plants after signaling he would on his 48-hour warning on Saturday. I think that's the right decision, because if we ended up bombing power plants, our credit markets would, again, there is no way we can really bomb those power plants unless after we do that, immediately we can take control of the strait and oil can start flowing through. Because if we just bomb more power plants and electricity grids shut down in Iran, yeah, it hurts their military, it hurts their government, it hurts all these different things, but it accelerates the war. Bonds get sold off, stocks get sold off, and nothing good happens for the US other than we've hurt their military a little bit more, which is, yeah, that's good in the context of a war, but that's not good in the context of the credit markets that are screaming at this point. So, I mean, this is what Trump does, right? He builds up a lot of attention and then he lets that tension play out. The question is, do the markets believe it this time? And, you know, until we find out if the markets believe it, then it's still going to be a broader question in terms of how that's playing out. Amid, perhaps that's the point, to gain time for the Marines to get there. That's another theory I heard about over the past hour. I mean, that is, I think, a fair point, that there was a report on Friday, which is when the markets tanked at around 3 p.m. Eastern, which is that CBS reported ground troops are getting ready and Marines and warships to go to Iran, not with the explicit intent of being deployed, but they're getting ready in case they're going to be deployed. So one could argue that Trump is buying time right here in order to get those ground troops there. Maybe, maybe not. Again, I don't think the guy really wants to put ground troops on the floor, but maybe he's recognizing that's the only opportunity. Like, we really don't know. And so until then, the markets are going to still have to figure out exactly what might end up happening. So we're green for now. We're green for now. And hopefully we continue on that green. All right, let's get into some other business updates and market stuff. We will get back into the oil prices and the war as we get towards the market open. But let's talk about a bunch of other things that did happen. And by the way, let me just give a summary again. I think this is a good summary for what exactly happened this morning for those that are just joining. Again, good morning to everybody. 7:04 a.m., Trump says the U.S. and Iran have had productive discussions. By 7:10, we added $2 trillion of market cap to the S&P 500. 27 minutes later, Iran completely denied all of those claims. By 8 a.m., we erased $1 trillion of the $2 trillion that we added. $3 trillion swing in market cap within 56 minutes. Welcome to the greatest show on earth. The absolute greatest show on earth. All right, so let's get into it. What else do we got going on? A couple other updates. ONDS, they had earnings today. I thought the earnings were quite impressive, to be honest. They have doubled their revenue forecast for 2026, which is pretty incredible. They achieved record revenue growth. Backlog surged to 70 million. They raised 960 million in 2026. They talked about their partnership with Palantir. They secured major airport counter systems. They won a government border security contract, expanded manufacturing with the US and European investors, and then they beat on EPS. I do not have a position in this company. I did interview the CEO at AIPCon. I'm still doing my due diligence on this one. But stock's up 4% right here. I don't know if that 4% holds. Again, it's good earnings, but if the macro is bad, maybe that 4% doesn't hold. Maybe it does. It was down 6% on Friday. Overall, this is what you want to see out of a growth stock in terms of their ability to continue engaging momentum. Yes, that's correct. They also acquired Worldview. So their guidance increased substantially. Year-over-year growth is now being guided for 640%. Q1 2026 guidance was 820%. Obviously off a small base, but nonetheless, they're still growing. And look, they're in the right sector. The right sector is drones and defense, and based on drones and defense, ONDS continues to gain more momentum. ONDS right there, 4% up in the pre-market. Palantir over the weekend, for those that didn't hear, was named as the program of record. That's up 1.85% for the Department of War in terms of Maven. If you don't know what Maven is, it is basically the backbone of defense for the United States military. And the government put out a AI framework on Friday, and that AI framework made Palantir the quote-unquote program of record for the U.S. military, which is a big deal. It's essentially solidifying Maven as the backbone of defense. Right now, it's a 5-year, $450 million deal. Eventually, I think that's going to be $1 billion per year contract with Maven because of all the different use cases that are there. Also, this is really important because NATO uses Maven. Palantir does not have these massive $100 million, multi-$100 million contracts with different neighboring NATO countries to adopt Maven. They have a sort of general contract with NATO. So if Germany, France, if all these countries say, hey, we also want to use Maven as the backbone of our defense system, which is not going to happen overnight, but the framework for that to happen, I think, becomes a lot more possible. You're talking about multiple billion-dollar contracts over the coming years just off Maven alone, which is a specific government program, has nothing to do with the commercial side of the business. So I think that also is really, really important, and that was a good thing for Palantir. Obviously, the stock is not really going to move off that. All the growth stocks that are up right now in the pre-market are up based on this Iran potential taco by Trump, but good for long-term shareholders to kind of understand the implications of how this is playing out. The Nikkei was down 3% last night. Oh, Muddy Waters, was he on CNBC? We'll take a listen a little bit later to what they had to say. They are still doubling down on their short report when it comes to SoFi, so we'll talk about that. 88.41 on crude, so crude is dropping very nicely right here. Look at that. I'm looking at 89.13, probably just touched 88, so this is really good. Again, this thing was pushing above 100 at 5 a.m. You are seeing a really meaningful decline. VG obviously is down. Next Decade is down. Cheniere is down. All of these different oil and gas plays, Chevron, Exxon, are down as crude oil futures begin to tank. A 9% move is pretty aggressive, which is good for the equity markets. We just need to continue to see if the market believes that this will continue to come down. Grab, let's talk about them. We have something to finally talk about. There is a big deal that took place today. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We'll talk about it more towards the end of the show, but I will give you a high-level overview. They're expanding to Taiwan, and I really, really like this. They just had an impromptu shareholder meeting for the past hour. I was listening to it before we went live. $600 million. They're acquiring Food Panda's delivery business in Taiwan, and I like this for 3 reasons. Number one, they have $6 billion in cash. It is time to use the money to grow. They are finally using the money to grow in a strategic way. And I think we're going to see a lot more of these acquisitions over the coming years, given they have $6 billion in cash, and that $6 billion in cash can be used in a productive way. Number two, Uber to try to buy this business for $1.25 billion. Regulators didn't allow it. Grab is getting a 50% discount to buy the business. The business did $1.8 billion in GMV. Grab did $14.2 billion of GMV. So they're buying for $600 million, which is a 50% discount from what Uber tried to buy, a 12% addition to their GMV. So I really like this. I think it's really strong for them to be expanding to a different part of the world. They put out a presentation online with what this is going to do. Essentially, this is increasing their total addressable market by $40 billion in terms of Taiwanese consumer food service. And look, long-term, I'm long Grab because they're guiding for 20% top-line revenue growth, 40% adjusted EBITDA growth. For the next 3 years, they want to do $1.5 billion of EBITDA by 2028, which means they only traded about 7 times EBITDA in 2028, which is incredibly cheap for the growth that they're putting up. Intrinsically, I think it's undervalued. Morgan Stanley came out today after this deal. They reaffirmed their $6 and $40 price target. They believe the valuation is dirt cheap, although there are some execution concerns on if they're going to be able to pull this off. Overall, I think it's a good deal. It's the first deal they've done in a while that I've been really looking forward to. And, it's not go-to yet. Eventually, if we get go-to, that's also going to be good. But this is a good thing. Now, Rick says they're competing with Uber. The reason I don't think the Uber concerns are that big of a deal is because, remember, the CEO of Uber is on the board of Grab, Dara. He's not going to approve this deal by Grab unless he thinks there's a synergy right here. So Uber wanted this business in Taiwan, but Uber is like a pseudo monopoly when it comes to the Uber Eats, I should say, to the food delivery business, which is why the regulators didn't allow it. Uber basically gets exposure to this whole business because they have a 14% stake in Grab, and Grab now gets to be able to access it. Now, are Grab and Uber going to be competing in some ways? Yes. But obviously, this is not the biggest part of the business for Uber. In their North American business, it's much larger than them. So for them to be able to get access to the exposure of the Taiwanese market by Grab being able to buy it because they have a majority stake in Grab, to me, is more synergistic. Again, Dara on the board of the company, I don't think he would have allowed this to take place if he wasn't good with this actually happening. So I think it makes sense. I don't think the stock is going to move on this. Last thing I'll say on this, simply because oil prices in the region continue to go higher, and Grab is likely going to subsidize those oil prices. Oil is a macro headwind to everything. And so I don't think you're going to see the stock react to this meaningfully just because the street realizes that next quarter's earnings are going to be a little tough given those oil prices. But they said it will add incrementally $60 million of adjusted EBITDA by 2028. They're paying $600 million for that. I think that adjusted EBITDA revenue growth and adjusted EBITDA growth over the long term is going to be very accretive. And if they are able to grow that Taiwanese business, that shows the future expansion inside of the Southeast Super App. So that's what we got on Grab. Ruben says they just spent 3 months in Taiwan and they're buying a great company. Yeah, I mean, 1.8 billion in GMV is not something to look past that. And again, the stock was at 650 in September. I know it's going to take a lot for it to get back up there, but to me, I do think it's intrinsically undervalued. And over time, I think these acquisitions will be very, very accretive long-term, especially as all the analysts also believe that this thing probably should be worth $7-8. So that's the update we got on Grab. ONDS, again, great earnings as well. Reddit, that's up in the pre-market. Meta's up 1.7%. Micron's up 1%. Micron was almost below $400 today. At 5 a.m., this thing was at $402. So you talk about a taco. Oh, actually, it did. Sorry, $393. It hit $393 in the pre-markets. Robinhood was below 70. Now it's above 70, 71, 60. Tesla was 356. Now Tesla's at 371. I mean, just massive recoveries from the lows based on this Trump taco. If you're just joining, Trump said he will be delaying the attacks on Iran by 5 days, which, by the way, we're not talking enough about the fact that it's 5 days, which is going to create more uncertainty for the next 5 days until the 5 days are up. We're going to have to get another taco in 5 days, right? We're going to have to get some level of another taco over the next 5 days, or Trump is going to end up bombing power plants in 5 days. So although it creates more uncertainty, I do think it proves that Trump is not willing to go that far, and hopefully in the next 5 days, just like when he delayed the reciprocal tariffs by 90 days and we rallied on 10% on the S&P, after those 90 days, Trump delayed them again by another 6 months, another 180 days. So if we get another taco after this current taco, hopefully that leads to a string of tacos, and hopefully that becomes the best food on the planet for investors as we continue to get the hell out of this situation, which continues to look bleak, but hopefully that takes place. Tesla right there, up 1% in the pre-market. Another shockwave in 5 days. Yeah, I mean, I just, as I was reading the tweet, I was like, wait a second. He said for 5 days, not 5 months. So in the next 5 days, we're definitely going to have to figure out what happens. And at least for today, the markets are pricing in a little bit more momentum, but time will tell on if we can move on from all of this going into the end of the week. VG right there is down 5%. S&P 500 again, up 1.72%. Are we selling calls today? My opinion continues to be yes. I think this is a great opportunity to continue selling calls. I mean, do we get a massive 7-8% breakout across the entire market by the end of these 5 days? I don't think so. If it does, you can roll your calls, and you can at least be happy knowing that if the probabilities are shifting to the downside, that we don't get that massive V-shaped recovery in the next 5 days, which maybe it happens. And maybe you want to be conservatively selling the calls at a higher delta just in case, or a lower delta just in case this does break out. But if it doesn't, which every single time we've seen some level of progress, it gets rooted back down. The covered call has been the saving grace of at least collecting some level of premium from the volatility. So I think it's a great day to do that. I do also think if you feel you are way too leveraged long, it is a good opportunity to have some level of de-risking. But if you've just been buying the dip and holding on and want to be rewarded for buying the dip, if you bought the dip at all over the past 48 hours, then hopefully today is the reward as some of these stocks can regain a little bit more of momentum. Yes, hopefully the taco leads us to going to a fiesta. That would be a very nice thing to see. NVIDIA right there, up 2.68% in the pre-market. All right, a couple other updates that we had over the weekend. First of all, Berkshire is acquiring a 2.5% stake in a Japanese insurance company. That came out this morning. So once again, Berkshire, that has $350 billion in cash, they continue to be excited about the Japanese markets. The Nikkei was down 3% as of yesterday's close. I think this makes sense for Berkshire. I think it's also really interesting how Berkshire continues to expand into Japan as one of the main markets that they want to go into versus the United States. I mean, they could be buying a lot more U.S. equities, and they're not. So Japan seems to be a key area of focus. The Kospi, by the way, the South Korean index also was down 7% yesterday based on these rising oil prices. Tesla over the weekend, I talked about this last night. This was also very interesting. Tesla and Elon came out with a statement and a presentation that they want to now basically build a terawatt, which is 1,000 gigawatts. 1 gigawatt, by the way, or sorry, I should say, 1 gigawatt costs about $10 billion to create, around about that range. Elon wants to create 1,000 gigawatts of compute internally within Tesla and SpaceX. I was a little confused by this because basically Elon's saying we want to do the packaging, the memory, the lithography, and everything that is relevant when it comes to making chips. I don't know if that's going to happen. I like the ambition. Obviously, you should never doubt Elon because eventually he ends up being right, even if it takes time. But the broader takeaway for me as an investor in the broader AI sector means, regardless of if Tesla and SpaceX figures this out, the demand for compute is insatiable. I mean, Elon is talking about a terawatt of compute. I don't think Google, Meta, and Amazon need a terawatt of compute, but they definitely need a lot more than they have right now if Elon needs a terawatt of it. And if that's the case, then probably that's going to be very beneficial for the broader AI trade when it comes to NVIDIA, Broadcom, AMD, which means the macro is holding it down, but I don't think long-term it continues to stay down if this level of demand is as strong as Elon talks about. Here's what he said over the weekend.
Advanced technology fab, we will have all of the equipment necessary to make a chip of any kind, logical memory, and we will also have all of the equipment necessary to make the lithography masks. So in a single building, we can create a lithography mask, make the chip, test the chip, make another mask, and have an incredibly fast recursive loop for improving the chip design. To the best of my knowledge, this doesn't exist anywhere in the world, where you've got everything necessary to build logic, memory, and do packaging, and test it, and then do the masks, improve the masks, and just keep looping it. So, and we're not just going to do conventional compute in this. I think there's some very interesting new physics that is potentially, that actually I'm confident will work. It's just a question of when. So this is we're really going to push the limit of physics in compute. And we're going to try a bunch of wild and crazy things, which you can do if you've got that fast iteration loop. That I can't emphasize enough the importance of being able to make a chip, test it, and then change the design, do another one, and have that in a single building.
So look, if Elon pulls this off, obviously it's going to be a really big deal. It's a multi-decade vision at this point. It also assumes to me that there is inevitably going to be a merger with Tesla and SpaceX. If you're holding on to Tesla, I think you're eventually going to have SpaceX stock, or it'll just be called ticker symbol Elon. But it does feel like it's going to happen. This is going to be the merging of Tesla, XAI, and SpaceX. Elon talked a lot about the synergies between all of them and needing the amount of compute that is necessary for humanoid robotics, FSD, data centers in space. I also do think he is creating a narrative to get people excited to buy the IPO, which is his job as the CEO, to get people to buy the stock and to get people to be excited at buying it at an almost $2 trillion valuation. But nonetheless, you know, it does mean compute is not slowing down. And regardless of the macro, that broader tailwind, I think you either believe in it or you don't. But if you do believe in it, it doesn't look like that is going to be slowing down anytime soon. Airport collisions are also getting a lot of attention. Unfortunately, given the lack of DHS funding for the TSA, Trump is now sending ICE guards to these airports to try to figure out how this is playing out. And today it led to a collision in LaGuardia Airport. You can't say the collision is a direct result of the whole TSA strike, but it could be to an extent if you extrapolate it. And airports in the country are not doing the best right now.
Of two pilots, Phil LeBeau's covering it for us, of course, and has the latest for us. Phil.
David, we're in the mode now where they are investigating already what's happened at LaGuardia Airport, the accident happening just before midnight last night. As you mentioned, 2 people were killed during the collision, pilot and co-pilot for an Air Canada regional jet, when it collided with a fire truck that was responding to another aircraft going out to check out an incident with another aircraft. There appears to be, and this is just going off of the air traffic control tower tape, there appears to be some issue with communication in terms of whether or not the fire truck should have gone across the runway. Clearly, it should not have, where the Air Canada jet was coming in. And as a result, you had the collision. 41 people were injured. So here's what's going to happen at LaGuardia Airport, is already happening right now. The situation as it will play out over the rest of today. You're going to have it closed until 2 p.m. That's how long the airport will be closed. The NTSB already on the scene, already investigating. And the focus is going to be tarmac communication from the air traffic control tower with vehicles on the tarmac, as well as with aircraft. Was there an issue in terms of how the communication took place? Was it a case of somebody didn't understand somebody else? The NTSB will get to the bottom of exactly what took place. Meanwhile, another situation at airports around the country is that we may start to see ICE agents deployed to assist with the TSA agents. As we know, there have been a number of problems with staffing for TSA agents. Look, they're going on almost a month without pay. And as a result, the percentage of TSA agents who have either called out or who have quit altogether, it continues to grow. And at various airports around the country, guys, it's not every airport. Some airports, there's no lines, no problem at all with staffing. Other airports, you've got hours-long wait. And as a result, the ICE agents are being deployed at some of these airports to assist the TSA, though I haven't seen any video or images yet of ICE agents actually at TSA security checkpoints.
It is definitely a bad situation at the airports. If you are coming to the LA meetup, which we're doing this Saturday, March 28th, I would get to the airport early. I mean, I'm getting ready to get early by 3 hours for a domestic flight, when realistically you need to be there like maybe an hour early, just because, I mean, if there's not enough TSA agents, the lines are going to stack up. Some of the lines that I saw at JFK, the lines at LaGuardia, the lines at Dallas-Fort Worth, I mean, you're talking about like 500 people in a line to get into the airport. It's getting absolutely ridiculous. And so, unfortunately, this is not going to be resolved until we get the DHS funding. The DHS funding is not going to be happening until the Save America Voting Act gets passed. Trump was very clear last night that he's not going to sign anything until that voting act gets passed. The Democrats are not going to be signing it because they don't want Trump to get an easy victory on this. Also, the Democrats are pretty happy about this war, given how it looks, how it makes Trump look. So they're not going to give him a win politically in the midst of this war happening. And so you might just not get DHS funding, which is why Trump is sending some of these ICE agents into these airports. And the bigger threat of all this is it obviously could result in a broader shutdown. And when that shutdown happens, if no one's willing to come to the table because the Save America Act isn't passing, the DHS funding isn't going through, the war is still continuing, and then the government shuts down, which again is not supposed to happen for a couple months. But if that does happen, it can obviously get really ugly. It would not be the best thing for any of us that are obviously traveling as well. We have a new political disclosure, financial disclosure by Representative David Taylor. Let's pull this up. We saw a couple of these disclosures last week. What did he buy and sell? He sold Chevron. He bought Home Depot, bought RPM, and bought Lam Research. Not sure why he's buying Lam Research. Home Depot, you guess he could say if the housing market opens up. By the way, mortgage rates are going back up again. I mean, you would think they kind of bottom out around 6%. They're now averaging 6.3. So unfortunately, the housing market is going to be held up. And that's the bigger question we talked about last night. We are not going to see a rate cut anytime soon if oil prices continue to persist at these levels, even at $89, $85 a barrel, because the inflation data is going to factor them in. And one could argue that oil is not necessarily intrinsically linked to higher inflation, even though I think that there's a logical argument for it. But if oil prices continue to persist and we have more layoffs, which means demand starts to die down, the Fed is going to continue to print money, QE, without lowering rates. So if you have QE without lower rates, that's when you actually get inflation. And from that perspective, it can get really messy for risk-on assets that need a better macro backdrop to survive and all this. So the first rate cut is now pushed out to January of 2027. We are completely done with rate cut probabilities for 2026. In fact, on the next meeting, the probability is a 13% chance for a cut or a hike. Actually, it's now 8.3. Okay, so it came down. It was 12.6 last night, 8.3 based on Trump's comments today for a rate hike. The fact that there's even a close to 10% chance for a hike just goes to show you that there is zero chance for a cut anytime soon. And at this point, pausing might be better than anything else. Ray, thanks for being a channel member. Well, do you have any good news? Yeah, I vibe coded my own website over the weekend. So that's the good news. akmedia.news is live, baby. All the details that people have been asking for is on the website, and will probably get better over time. It took me an hour. It was pretty crazy to just tell Claude what I wanted and for it to do what it needed to do. So that's our good news. I vibe coded a website, and I don't know, dude. Like just experiencing that, and then imagining what Fortune 500 companies are experiencing, doing way more complex things than building a landing page. It feels like you can't put this genie back in the bottle, and AI is not slowing down anytime soon. Goolsby, he's live. Let's see what he has to say about inflation, oil, and what Trump had to say for Iran.
The balance, as you know, through 2025, we experienced another inflationary shock. People complaining about prices. We stopped making progress on the inflation front, and at best it stalled out and started inching its way back up. So we've been waiting for that to have proved transitory, to have gone away, and to pile a new inflation shock on top of this before that one has left the scene. This is going to be a tough moment.
Austin, I'll just tell you that minutes before the president put out his Truth Social, I was about to come on air and talk about how the outlook for the Fed funds rate in December had now turned fairly decisively toward a rate hike, in addition to the idea that many of the Fed watchers who I read every weekend and every day were kind of capitulating in the sense that even in the face of a weak job market, the inflation story was going to be intense enough that the Fed was going to have to hike rates. What was your view even before this happened about the outlook for policy?
Well, as you know, Last year, I was a voter and I dissented at the last meeting of the year because we did not have the data to show that inflation was going away. The argument that rates should go down in the immediate term was premised on that the inflation was going to be transitory and go away. I remained fairly optimistic that by the end of 26, rates could go down, but I wanted to see proof that we're back on an inflation headed to 2%. This definitely throws a wrench into the plans. We do need to see progress. Steve, as you know, when I'm thinking about what could lead inflation to turn into something more extended and not be temporary, one of the key mechanisms is if everybody starts expecting inflation is going to remain high. And there's a lot of research work that documents that the price of gasoline specifically has a very high impact on individuals' expectations of what inflation is going to be over the next year. So
it's a long-winded way of saying oil going up is not good for inflation expectations. And as a result, until we get a more legitimate taco, if you're just joining, Trump tweeted this morning that he's going to be delaying the strikes on Iran's power plants by 5 days, which is why we're green. You know, will the markets actually believe that over the next 5 days? By the way, we have some updates from Israel. So this is to a Sky News reporter. An Israeli security establishment source tells me, I'd approach this cautiously with a grain of salt. It's early Monday morning in the U.S., the start of the trading week. Markets opened higher, largely as expected, following the weekend reports on the negotiations and the latest statement by Trump. That said, I wouldn't view this move as a final step. We saw a similar pattern last week. Oil prices have also declined, supporting a positive sentiment in the short term. For now, it appears he has bought a few more days, roughly into week 4, until the Marines arrive and complete their initial deployment and organization phase. The Iranians are already denying it. You also have an Israeli official stating to Bloomberg, there is no imminent end to the conflict and operations will go on, but energy facilities will not be targeted. It seems obvious based on these quotes from Israeli officials that came out in the past 10 minutes that Israel does not want people to think the war is over for obvious reasons, right? They want to continue their military operations as well. And so the market might take Trump's word over Bibi's word in terms of an end to the conflict coming sooner than later. Again, Trump said this morning to Fox News that he thinks it could be done in 5 days or less, which, you know, every week, if he keeps reiterating this, it's just going to be a question of when the markets finally stop believing it. But as of now, we're up green. Bitcoin's above 70. The markets believe it. And if the markets can continue to believe it, then hopefully that will continue. What does he mean by taco? Okay, so for those that are confused by tacoing, the term stands for Trump always chickens out. And the concept of it is not even that political, to be quite frank. Every time Trump has built up a lot of aggression and the markets have freaked out about it, he then tacos, aka he doesn't do what he said he was going to do. We've seen this literally 7 times in the past year. And the most recent one was the whole Greenland tariff thing. And then the markets go back to normal. So that is the concept of the taco. And it looks like it's happening, at least in the pre-market to some extent. But hopefully it continues. What did you guys say in the poll? Green or red on the day? Let's see what people are thinking. Muddy Waters was on CNBC talking about his short. Do I have that clip? Yes, I have that clip. We got about a couple minutes until we get into the market open. Let's see what Muddy Water had to say.
Discussions and then
is a conflict between China and Taiwan.
Wait, is this the Muddy Waters guy? Yeah, this is him. Okay, let's see. Let's see if he can give some analysis here on SOFI.
Technology companies, the best users of AI within these companies have been able to replace 7 of their colleagues with just themselves and AI. Now, the current generation is substantially more powerful than the prior one, and it was coded by its predecessor. The current generation is coding its successors. So this is not a linear progression in capability. This is an exponential progression. So when you're going to have businesses that adopt AI in this way, that are going to be able to significantly underprice their competitors, it's going to force everybody to adopt. So if rather than going from 8 to 1, we say in the general economy, fit that high earner, not rich yet demographic, that I think is going to be nailed by AI displacement.
I mean, that's been one of their selling points, is that they have a younger, more tech savvy audience and consumer base.
Yeah, and look, we're not short SoFi right now because of that. Although we did buy a bunch of long-dated, deep out-of-the-money puts on it as part of our AI disruption thesis. So one thing that we are doing internally is we are positioning part of our book to take advantage of what could be a GFC-type situation, because you
Global
overlay...
financial crisis situation.
Okay, so they're not short SoFi. They have puts, and their argument is we could have a GFC type of scenario where AI displaces the banks. And I guess that's their thesis. That means they think the stock is going below $10 if he's saying deep out of the money puts on SoFi.
Yeah, because you overlaid AI disruption with what could be some real issues in private credit. I mean, the short answer there is nobody knows. But in the course of doing the work on SoFi, some of the practices that we've seen in securitization are really loose in terms of the documentation.
We need to go. Let me first say,
I do not think the SoFi short makes any sense unless SoFi has significant exposure to private credit and or their partners have significant exposure, which is going to hurt their loan quality or their ability to continue selling loans via their LPB, their loan book platform. Then I don't think it's necessarily going to collapse by 50 to 70%. I do think SoFi is in a bad macro narrative, which a lot of stocks are in a horrible narrative right now. Unfortunately, the banks just have not had a good year so far. They had a great year in 2025. But I don't think that means the stock goes down 50%, especially after the stock is already down 40%. But time will tell. We'll see how this all plays out. All right, so here we go. We got 30 seconds until the market opens. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is Monday morning. Let's see how this ends up playing out. For those that are just joining, Trump ended up saying that he will delay the attacks on Iranian power plants. That led to the markets reversing, led to the markets feeling the perception of the war coming to an end is sooner than later. Trump then said the war he thinks will be done in 5 days. We are going to see if we actually get a real pivot or if this market goes down. About 65% of you think we hold the green. 35% say we don't. Let's find out if that is the case. Monday, March 23rd, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P 500 opens up 1.43%. 1.43% on the S&P 500. We have reversed 50% of the decline that we had on Friday, which is actually a bit more than that. We've kind of got rid of pretty much all of it because we were down 1.43. Now we're up 1.53. So let's see if that trend can continue. But the S&P opens up green. Qs are up 1.36%. That is green as well. AMD is up 2.69%. Synopsys got an activist investor stake by Elliott. That stock up 2.48%. Next Decade down 5%. Cheniere down 2%. VG, which was pushing $18 this morning, is down 4%. Palantir is up 2%. ONDS was up 4%. Now it's down 1.68% or up 1.68%. So losing a little bit of that momentum. That one continues to be green. SMCI fell 40% on Friday. Now it's down 2.68%, continuing to have more pain. SanDisk, that's basically flat. Nubank, that's up 2.7%. Satellogic, that's up 3%. Oklow's up 1%. ARM's up 2%. Netflix is up 1%. Where is the lab of rockets? Rocket Lab is flat on the day. Tesla, are we getting a pump? Tesla, 376. It was at 356 this morning. So if you were up at 5 a.m. and you bought some Tesla, you're up $20 right now. 376.60, that's up 2.35%. On the day. Robinhood is green, 1.3. SoFi is also green, 1.6. Grab up 1.5. VG still down 1.9. Palantir getting a 4% move right there. 156.25. Again, they did get that big Maven establishment of program of record on Friday. So maybe that's having some impact, but Palantir in general getting the boost right there. Apollo, that's up 1.7. Visa's up 1.3. Amcor's up 1.2. Where is NVIDIA? Did we get 177? We are at 177, holding tight, up 2.4%, at least on NVIDIA. It was almost below 170 in the pre-market, so that is a pretty big move from those lows. Nebius was at 120. We are at 117, still green on the day. CoreWeave is 82.15, slightly green. And then what's the other one? Iran, up 2.6. Iran actually doing the best out of all of them. Coherent is flat. It's fading all of its pre-market move. All the photonics plays not really getting as much love. Lumentum up 2.4, but down from 743. You got a big red candle right there on some of these photonics plays. S&P losing a little bit of steam. We're still up 1.3. Got some red candles coming in, but hopefully we can kind of stay and hold a little bit of this momentum. Saudi Arabia's oils officials say prices could soar past 180 a barrel if war-related disruptions persist until late April, per the Wall Street Journal. I do think Trump, based on his headline this morning about wanting to end this in 5 days, is not going to let this last till the end of April. I mean, I'm really hoping he doesn't, because if it does, yeah, I don't know if we see 180 oil, but regardless of if we even have $100 oil or even 95, the point is for us as investors, inflation will persist. And so we kind of need oil to, doesn't need to tank, but it definitely needs to start making its way down every single day, or at least every single week, for oil to not be in that bad of a situation. AMD right there, 207. Silver goes green. Silver goes green. Gold still flat. Palantir really making a move right here, 4%. And this is on the headline that the war will end soon, which one could argue the defense premium that Palantir was getting might get faded if the war is actually ending soon. So the fact that it's up 4% today, probably a combination of that headline we got on Friday around Maven, and then potentially growth stocks catching a bigger bid. NVIDIA trying to break out to 178, 177.33. Is Bitcoin green? Bitcoin is 70.7. MicroStrategy bought another set of Bitcoin today. How much did they buy? I think it's 71,000. 1,031 Bitcoin for 76 million. They now have 762,000 Bitcoin. Their average is 75,695. So they're about 5,000 away from breaking even on their Bitcoin. BMNR also bought some more Ethereum this morning. BMNR up 1% in the pre-market right here. Or not the pre-market, the market open. Let's see what other macro news we're getting. Nebius just going red. NVIDIA getting another red candle right there as well. The S&P, it's holding 656, but it looks like it wants to break down. It doesn't look like it's easily sustaining above that 657. Barclays came out on Amazon. They are overweight, $300. They continue to reiterate that Amazon is the best risk reward in the entire market. By the way, the OnlyFans owner died this morning at 43. I don't have a reason for why. If anyone has a reason, let me know. But yeah, that was just a headline that came in earlier this morning, and I don't know exactly why he passed away. But cancer? It was cancer? Oh, I did not know that. Well, he did pass away today, so rest in peace to him. And that was another headline we saw earlier this morning. S&P 500 right there, 656. Nebius 117. NVIDIA 176.80. Gold still red on the day. Verizon getting a little bit of a move. Circle is down. Circle's been the best crypto play all year based on the stablecoin thesis. Apollo, that's at 112. Broadcom, 321. Broadcom actually getting a better pump, 3.7% as well. Miran from the Fed is guiding for 4 cuts this year. I don't know what the hell he's smoking, thinking we're going to get 4 cuts. I mean, if we get 4 cuts this year, it's going to be a really fun year. Talk about being a dove. Why couldn't this guy be the Fed chair? Why couldn't Trump just wait to nominate this guy as the Fed chair? Goodness gracious, dude. That would have been a lot better. He picked the biggest hawk in Kevin Warsh versus this guy. SOFI below 17 again. We'll take a look at Moran's comments in a little bit. Iran right there, up 2.6. Coherent still going red. Hood 7140. NVIDIA 177. Where's the Googs? Google is up 0.5%. Amazon is up 2.5. Amazon also guided, we didn't cover this on Friday, but they guided for $600 billion of AWS revenue by 2035, which I know is 10 years out, but like the expectations were, I think, 400 billion. So they are really thinking they're going to accelerate the growth. And if they continue to do that, that's obviously, once again, going to lead their EV to EBITDA ratios being at the lowest levels we've seen in history. If they can actually grow to 600 billion by 2025. By the way, the Financial Times reported that OpenAI is planning to double its workforce to 4,000 to 8,000 by the year of 2027 early. So basically by end of 2026, early 27. Most of the hiring is set to go into product engineering, research, and sales, which is a good thing because a lot of people think AI will take away jobs, which it probably will. But if the AI companies themselves are hiring, then hopefully that's a sign of confidence for other companies that will be hiring as well. Wow, Palantir 158. If we can crack 160 today, that would be very, very encouraging. Again, Burry said $50 by 2027. I don't know if that easily happens. And if the market turns, I mean, this is Palantir moving up without the market really flipping, meaningfully green yet. If the market actually turns, I think it's going to be a little tougher for Palantir to get hit as badly as some people say it could get hit. Broadcom right there, that's up 3.73%. AppLovin, that's up 5%. Uber, that's up 1.64%. GLW is pumping. Corning is up 5%. How much was this down over the past month? Corning over the past month is down 10%, even with the 5% move today. So this one has had a big run. Year to date, it's up 44%. Same thing with Micron, although it's down from last week when it hit 470. It's at 423. It's still up 40% for the year, which is not bad. Same thing with SanDisk as well. So the memory names continue to at least not be in the worst situation at the moment. On the poll, I'm looking at it real quick. These are still 60-40, basically, or I should say 70-30. Green versus red. I know it's only 8 minutes in, but I wonder if we can hold on to this. It looks like we're going to hold on to it, but every time we've said that before, by midday, something happens. But then again, when we go super red, by after hours, something happens. Like literally on Friday, we were deep red at 3:30. And then by 5:15, Trump said he thinks the war is going to end soon. And then we pumped up 1%, like an entire 1% reversal in the after hours. So it's just really hard to trust it. Tesla right there going for 380. Tesla going for 380. Where is Zeta? Zeta is up 2.4. How about software? IGV is up 2%. Nice to see. Salesforce kind of flat. Adobe is up 1%. ServiceNow is up 1.6. So Salesforce is the name that is not moving the most out of these software names. Palantir is moving with the greatest magnitude. But these software names at least are starting to go a bit green. Zscaler's up, Intuit's up, Twilio's up, Adobe, MongoDB, Atlassian, Oracle, Confluent. What about Microsoft? That is also. Let me switch the mic. Mic should be better now. I don't know why the mic issues. No better. VG, are we getting a move? VG, yeah, VG's about to go green, which is not the best signal. Usually when VG goes green, the market kind of gets down. VIX is down 8%. VIX is down 8%. So at least we're seeing some level of decline on the VIX. Micron just went red. Yeah, Micron is still red on the. Bitcoin also making a better move. Bitcoin right there. Wow, 71 on BTC. 71. Amit, are you selling your VG? No. It's not a lot. It's 1,500 shares. So to me, I mean, look, I wouldn't get mad at anyone who sells right here because, I mean, most of us who bought it at $6-7. Or I think maybe some people got it at 8. But I remember I posted the screenshot. I think it was $6.90 the day I bought 1,000 shares. I mean, to me, it's such a small position that you might as well just leave it there. And, it's not really a hedge. If this was like, 10,000 shares, it would be a hedge. But it's something. It's some level of green in the seeing. Adobe right there, 250. Zeta, 1743. Amazon at 211 as well. Trump is live. Is he going live today? Why is he going live? He's talking. Okay, he's about to leave. Let's transition. He's talking at the airport. Let's see if we can get anything from this.
We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement. Perhaps that hasn't been conveyed. The communication, as you know, has been blown to pieces. They're unable to talk to each other. But we've had very strong talks. Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner had them. They went, I would say, perfectly. I would say that if they carry through with that, it'll end that problem, that conflict. And I think it'll end it very, very substantially. We have very much in mind our partners in the Middle East. We've had great relationships with a lot of them, as you know. A lot of them were surprisingly hit. And I was surprised to see it, and so was everyone else. But we have They're very much in mind in the discussions. So the discussions took place yesterday. They went into yesterday evening. They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We're going to get together today by probably phone because it's very hard to find a country. It's very hard for them to get out, I guess. But we'll at some point very, very soon meet. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
Who is Steve Witkoff speaking with, Mr. President?
A top person. Don't forget, we've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with the man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. It's a little tough. We've wiped out everybody.
Is that the Supreme Leader?
No, not the Supreme Leader.
So
We don't.
not much talk
Well, nobody heard of the second Supreme Leader, the son.
Are these direct?
Nobody. We have not heard from the son. Every once in a while, you'll see a statement made, but we haven't. We don't know if he's living. But the people that seem to be running it, and they seem that based on really fact, because things they've said have taken place.
Mr. President,
Again,
Mr. President, I know you deployed.
because I don't want him to be killed. Okay, I don't want him to be killed.
Mr. President, you deployed.
Nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants that job right now. Nobody's exactly looking forward to being the head of that particular country. But perhaps we'll be able to solve that problem.
Mr. President, you deployed ICE agents to American
Who are you
airports. Newsmax, sir. You deployed
You're
ICE
not
agents.
doing a very good job.
You deployed ICE agents.
You're not doing a good job. Did you hear me? Okay, go ahead.
What exactly do you want from
You
these
believe it?
talks?
I'm taking CNN over Newsmax. You
What
believe it?
exactly are you looking for in these talks, Mr. President?
We're looking for all of the things that we've been talking about. We want to see no nuclear bomb, no nuclear weapon, not even close to it. Low key on the missiles. We want to see peace in the Middle East. We want the nuclear dust. We're going to want that, and I think we're going to get that. We've agreed to that. Yeah, we've agreed to that.
You want the enriched uranium before you can end this.
And we want no enrichment, but we also want the enriched uranium. If this happens, it's a great start for Iran to build itself back, and it's everything that we want. And it's also great for Israel, and it's great for the other Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, all of them, Kuwait, and Bahrain in particular. So it's great for all of them.
If the war is ending, do you still need $200 billion?
It's always nice to have. It's always nice to have. It's a very inflamed world, and the Democrats inflame it. Largely the Democrats inflame it. Let me just talk about the others. So ICE has done very well. I've requested. Now, I'm a big believer that they should be able to wear masks when they go and hunt down, murderers, criminals, and others. But for purposes of the airport, I've requested that they take off the mask. I don't like it for the airport, and I believe they are willing to do that.
Mr. President,
Why do they wear
ICE.
masks not at the airport, but they need to do it when they're out in the country?
The people coming into the airport, typically speaking, aren't murderers, killers, drug dealers, etc. There may be a few of them, but there aren't many. They're people that want to come into the country, or that people want to leave the country, go into maybe their home country. So I didn't think it was an appropriate look for an airport. I think it's a very appropriate look when they're out on the street trying to find one of the 11,888 murderers that Sleepy Joe Biden led into our country.
Elon Musk, sir.
Last year you gave a $10,000 bonus. Sorry. Last year you gave a $10,000 bonus to TSA workers who kept showing up to work during the shutdown. Will you do that again?
Well, it could happen. It's amazing. There are people that are really, really loyal and great, and it's not easy for them. And this is all caused by the Democrats. It's just so you know, all this money was approved. Everything was approved. This is done. The Democrats went in, and they want to have radical left lunatics come into our country. They want to have drug dealers. They want to have murderers come into our country. They want to have open borders, and we're not letting it happen. That's what this is all about. They don't want voter ID. They don't want proof of citizenship. They don't want mail-in ballots. They're so corrupt. What they want, the only thing they want is mail-in ballots. So we also added, as you know, into the Save America Act. And it's called Save America. It's not the Save Act. but we added no transgender mutilization of our children and no men in women's sports.
Elon Musk, sir, if these talks go well and you reach
I don't think he's going to be a Newsmax.
if these talks go well and you reach a ceasefire agreement with Iran, do you believe Israel would abide by that agreement?
I think Israel will be very happy with what we have. We just spoke to Israel a little while ago. I think they'll be very happy. This will be peace for Israel, long-term peace, guaranteed peace. If this happens, and I can't guarantee it, but I think it's going to. My life is a deal. That's all I do is deals my whole life. I think this is something that's going to happen. And why wouldn't it happen? So tomorrow morning sometime, their time, we were expected to blow up their largest electric generating plants that cost over $10 billion to build. It's a very good one. There was no dearth of money. And one shot, it's gone. It collapses. Why would they want that? So they called. I didn't call. They called. They want to make a deal. And we are very willing to make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. And it's got to be no more wars, no more nuclear weapons. They're not going to have nuclear weapons anymore. They're agreeing to that. Any of that stuff, there's no deal.
They offered to reopen. You said you want to get the enriched uranium. How are you going to get the enriched uranium? Are you going to?
It's very easy. If we have a deal with them, we're going down and we'll take it ourselves.
Can I ask you, the Treasury lifted sanctions on Iranian oil that was out to sea. You criticized President Obama for giving Iran $1.7 billion.
Well, I just want to have as much oil in the system as possible.
But Iran is
And we don't even know if Iran gets that money. Frankly, I think it's very hard for them to get it. But you have ships that are out there that are loaded up with oil. Rather than keep it there, I would rather see it go to the system. Any small amount of money that Iran gets is not going to have any difference in this war. But I want to have the system be lubricated.
even $14 billion. You don't think helps them?
Where's the $14 billion?
Because the inflated price, they get $14 billion from the.
I don't think they're getting the money. I could tell you when this is all over, I will tell you who's getting the money.
Mr. President, the Marines from California, given that it'll take them weeks to arrive, is the intention to police the strait or take cars?
What are you talking?
Well, it's been reported that there are Marines that left California, left San Diego last week, at the end of the week. Why are they headed there now?
Well, let me ask you this. If you were in my position and I asked you that question, do you really believe I'd give you that? It's a crazy question.
Mr. President,
we don't talk about strategy. Yeah?
Another young woman was killed by an illegal immigrant that was let in under the Biden administration.
Let in by Biden.
Give a message for her family.
It's devastating. These people were let in by Biden. We're getting them out. We're getting them out fast. That's why ICE is so important. They're doing such a good job. This animal, I saw the whole thing last night. They gave me a briefing. Came in through Joe Biden with his open door policy and his border czar, Kamala, who never saw the border. Never made one phone call. All the ICE people, you see, they all know me. Everyone knows me. They like me. I speak to them all the time. Didn't make one phone call during 4 years. She was the border czar to anybody on the border. Never went there. This person came in through the open door policy of Joe Biden, and we have others. We're taking them out by the tens of thousands. We're doing a great job, but it's a shame. They've hurt our country. Just remember this. Joe Biden and that gang of radical left lunatics, some very smart, but radical left and bad ideology, sick people. These people have hurt our country very badly.
Are we directly talking with Iran?
Hitting those uranium power plants. How is that different from what Russia has been doing in Ukraine by hitting Ukrainian power?
Well, I think it's a lot different. And if you look at the nuclear weapons that they wanted to have, that they wanted to possess, a lot of things are different. I'm not a fan of what Russia's doing either, just so you understand. All right. But it's a lot different. You're talking about a country that has been evil for 47 years. They've been horrible. Death all over the world, not just us. Look at the way they attacked unexpectedly all of those countries surrounding them. It was not supposed to be. Nobody was even thinking about it. But they wanted to take over the Middle East, and they wanted to knock out Israel permanently. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have been able to do that.
Are we, Mr. President,
talking to Iran?
Mr. President? Do you know whether Joe Kent was leaking?
Look, I'm not a fan of the guy. If you look at, and you never cover this, if you look at his truths or whatever he went on, if it's X or truth, if you look at his truths or his statements, he was all for everything. All of a sudden, he wasn't. He was a man that I met at Dover. He came and his wife was killed. He remarried fairly quickly. His wife was killed, and I felt badly for him. He ran for Congress, he lost. He ran for Congress again, and he lost. I said, you know, he's a guy, nice guy, seemed like a very nice guy. I met him, he was pretty heartbroken, but I said, you know, it's a shame. He ran for Congress twice. Call him up, give him a job in the White House. Smart. They gave him a job in the White House, and this is what he does to me. You know, being a nice guy doesn't pay off too much. Think of it. He loses twice in Congress, ran not very good campaigns, should have won, but he loses twice. How do I get him? I have my people call him, because I didn't deal with him for the most part. I saw him a couple of times, but I never dealt with him at all. I had no idea his ideology was left or right, whatever it is. I can say this. He said very strongly that Iran is not a threat. Iran's been a threat for 47 years, and there's not a country in the world that doesn't agree with me on that. So I take this guy, Joe Kent, who lost twice for Congress, pretty badly and tough, and was devastated. And I know that he lost his wife. So instead of letting him live out his life, I brilliantly have my people call him and offer him a job in security, essentially, in the White House. And what does he do? He goes out and he says that Iran is not a threat to get publicity. Now, he probably signed up with CNN or maybe signed up with your division of Newsmax. I don't know.
President Trump taking many questions there outside of.
All right. I mean, markets are pumping. So you got Trump reaffirming his statement that the war will be coming to an end soon. Bitcoin, 71,389. That is a $3,300 candle, folks, from the lows of this morning. VG goes red. Microsoft getting a 1% move. Salesforce, Adobe, Zeta, IGV, Amazon, Google, SOFI, Palantir, very close to 160. I mean, everything's making a move right here. Put in the chat right now, are we back? Put a 1 if you think we're back. Put a 2 if you think we're not. Put a 1 if you think we're back. Put a 2 if you think we're not. I mean, we've seen these moments so many times get faded away. Obviously, it feels good, but the idea that it could get faded away is very, very likely. But given Trump, once again, is reaffirming this commitment, he even then said Israel will be happy with the response or the deal that they negotiate with Iran, which I don't know if Israel will be happy or not, but Trump trying to calm everyone down and saying Israel will go with the flow if we end up ending this over the next 5 days. He also mentioned he thinks this will be done in a week or sooner, which if you take him at his word and if he follows through, yeah, the markets are going to really like that. But will that end up playing out? Will that end up playing out? I'll put a poll in the chat. I'm seeing 50-50 on the ones versus the twos. I mean, look, if you're short, this is an incredible opportunity to double down if you don't believe any of this. If you're long, this is obviously somewhat of an opportunity to de-risk. And if you've been buying the dip, it probably feels good today. Majority of people. But are we back? Is the question. Yes or no in the chat. Are we back? What does that mean? Are we back? It means we put in a bottom. At least to an extent. Maybe it's a weekly bottom. Maybe we can't call official bottoms, but you know, do we see 170 again on NVIDIA? Do we see 641 on the S&P? We were at 641 at 5:30 this morning. Like, it was ugly in the pre. We're at almost 660 right now. It's a pretty meaningful reversal. And the question now is just, can we hold on to it? So that was Trump live at the airport, answering a variety of questions. Obviously, he went off on Joe Kent in that question that we just listened to as well. 659 right here on the S&P. Trump is still live talking about something else now other than Joe Kent. Let's go back to that. He said that he spoke to a major Iranian leader. Let me pull this up. Let's see what he's saying as well.
Is this a template you think is
well? What I'm doing today, really, this was supposed to be. This was a little bit before set up couple of weeks ago. This was before we had this situation with Iran take place last night. And by the way, they're just not communicating. When they say, I'm sure they don't mean that. When somebody says, oh, I didn't know you were talking. We were talking last night, and I'm sure they have a lack of communication, which is appropriate considering we blew up, in addition to their Navy, Air Force, every division.
But Trump is denying the Iranian foreign ministry that came out this morning and said we had no communication with the United States around stopping the power plant attacks. Trump is saying they're wrong. He's essentially saying they're lying, and we did have communication. Maybe it went through Pakistan or a different country, but he is confirming that that communication did happen last night.
The radar. We also blew up all of their anti-aircraft and communication. So they have no telecommunications. So there is a lack of, I would imagine, a lack of coordination.
If you're worried about the miscommunication.
Well, we think all we can do is think, look, we have numerous leader groups. They've all been killed. Very dangerous position. Khomeini was killed. Khomeini's son is unavailable. Nobody knows what happened to him. I can say they haven't seen him there either. Something is going on with him. But regardless, I don't consider him really the leader. But they do have some leaders left because we blew up group number 1, group number 2, a lot of group number 3. But we think we have people that are very representative of the country and will do a good job in representing.
Elon Musk has offered to pay TSA workers during this DHS shutdown. Is this something that you've been speaking to him about?
Yeah, I'd love it. I think it's great. Let him do that. And I want to thank ICE because they stepped in so strongly. They'll do great. And if that's not enough, I'll bring in the National Guard. We're not going to have the Democrats destroy our country. These people are the most destructive, sick people, the Democrats. They want, and they're fighting for this. They're fighting for men and women's sports. They're fighting for transgender for everybody. Everybody go out, get your kid a nice operation, and change the sex of your kid. They're fighting for, think of it. They don't want you to do voter ID. You walk into a booth. In California, if a person who's doing voting, an official, asks you for identification, they're subject to being arrested. What's wrong with this country? So we're fighting it hard. And I think they should, because the Democrats are being blamed for the shutdown, and it's their fault, and they're getting killed. That's why when I announced yesterday about ICE, the Democrats called. We want to settle. We want to settle. And I told the people, don't settle. Don't settle. Because we have something bigger. Only settle if you get the Save America Act, voter ID, and so important, proof of citizenship, etc. Thank you very much.
Whose idea was that? To put ICE in the airport.
We're dealing really.
Whose idea was it?
Okay, so once again, Trump making this argument around the war coming to an end soon and denying the claims of the Iranians. S&P high of day, folks, 660, denying those claims that they did not have official communications last night. So Trump is implying he talked to somebody last night. We don't know exactly who, but he talked to somebody. 70% of you say we are not back. 70-30. More so feeling this is a temporary fade or dead cat bounce, whatever you want to call it. It makes sense that the market's pumping right here. Like it absolutely makes sense. I mean, if Trump is as serious as he is in terms of trying to convince the market that the war is over, then yeah, we're going to go up. But in a day or two, or in an hour or two, if something happens, which on Friday, when you have the refineries get hit in Saudi Arabia, that was another way for the market to remember, oh yeah, it's not going to end anytime soon. If something like that happens over the next coming hours or next coming days, then we're not going to stay up. It's just that simple. And that's been the sort of methodology of how this chop has been playing out. 212 on the, 650 on the S&P, 212 for Amazon, Google 304, SoFi above 17, BMR up 4%. Again, I don't think it's the worst day right here to sell calls, or at least get a little bit of protection if you're thinking this move gets faded. Now, if Trump comes through and legit, there's a deal by the end of the week, we're probably going higher than this. The question is, will that take place? Wow, Micron goes red in the midst of all of this. That is just, I don't know if it's like bullish because there's so much hate on Micron, which is good because it becomes a contrarian play, or is it really bearish that after the best earnings we've seen since NVIDIA in May of 2023, Micron can't catch a bid. Now, obviously, it's up 40% this year. I get it. But I think the price action might be irrelevant compared to the future earnings multiple that the street is putting at the stock, which is at less than 5. I mean, those are companies that are priced for zero growth and a nice dividend, and Micron's growing 100%. So it is quite incredible to see that. Microsoft right there, 385, Adobe 250, ServiceNow at 112 as well. They're spending a lot on CapEx. Yes, they are spending a lot on CapEx, but they're guiding for 81% gross margins, which is better than NVIDIA's gross margins. So it's not like the CapEx is necessarily declining the internal unit economics of the business. I mean, if anything, the CapEx is just going to lead to more top-line growth. And because they have so much pricing power, they're able to accentuate their gross margins from 75 to 81% quarter over quarter. So within 90 days, they're expecting to get better margins, which I don't know, feels bullish, but I think that cyclicality narrative is definitely affecting them. Microsoft 385, S&P 660. 660. Amit, I saw a tweet this morning about a bunch of insiders selling their stocks. What are your thoughts on that news? That tweet is right. I mean, if you look at the aggregated level of insider selling across the market, yeah, there's definitely more insider selling than buying. I think this is the post you're referring to. However, there have been some very strategic buys. Micron had insider buying. Nike had insider buying. Reddit had insider buying. Shift4 had insider buying. So SOFI insider buying. So yeah, you are seeing a lot of net selling from insiders, but in general, that seems to be more noise than signal, given there are some insider buys across the board. And obviously those companies continue to put up earnings, which is the most important thing. Palantir right here, we did not touch 160, right? We touched 159.6. 159.6. We are close to that. ASML, that's up 5% of the day. It should be. I mean, Elon basically gave them the biggest endorsement he could by arguing that Tesla was going to go after lithography. ASML makes 70 machines a year, and it costs them $300 to $400 million to make each of those machines. You talk about a moat when it comes to semiconductor names, and this stock was trading at 600 back in October of 2024. So if Elon wants to go after that, it's definitely going to be something that is challenging, but ASML right there, up 5% on the day. SMCI, again, they were caught smuggling chips into China. That stock down 1.4. Has it bottomed yet? I'm not sure. Put in the chat if you're buying SMCI. I am curious if there's any people that are taking a flyer on this one, down 40% from Friday. HIMS is up 1.3. Oracle's up 2.4. IBM getting a big bid right there. That's up 3% as well. Enphase down. Chevron up. And then Iran. Wow, 7% on Iran. That's a hell of a move. Nebius is up 2%. And then CoreWeave up 3.7. It's not a good day to sell cash puts. Yeah, I mean, obviously premiums are going to be lower. It's a good day to buy puts because the premiums being lower versus sell them. But we need at least 3 days. We have not had 3 back-to-back-to-back green days. We've had 2, even though the second day, I think it was 2 weeks ago, was no, it was on Tuesday, right? Yeah, it was on Tuesday. It was very light green, but we ended up getting that second day of green. And then Wednesday we tanked after the FOMC. So we have not seen 3 days in a row to get to that green. Saudi Aramco plans to launch a process to sell a stake in its oil export and storage terminals business in coming weeks, as per Bloomberg. Wow. I mean, we also had the headline last night that Saudi Aramco is going to be winding down, or they've started to tell some of their Asian customers that they're not going to be able to supply as much oil as they had planned earlier in the year. So, I mean, it makes sense. Saudi Aramco is in a tough situation, and it's not going to get that much better anytime soon until these oil prices chill out. Where is crude? Are we still below 90? We are at least below 90 today, so a little bit of relief. The 10-year as well at 4.3. Which is good. The other thing about Saudi Aramco is, one of the things that Aramco has been the best at is making sure there's a decent amount of supply along with the rest of OPEC in the markets. That's what's kept oil down for the past 2 years. I mean, if they don't have access to the refineries or facilities, and even if they get access in the next coming months, those are months without more supply. That's why Trump was getting questioned about, well, if you guys are going to unsanction Iranian oil, and that's going to unlock $14 billion of capital for the Iranians to continue funding the war. Why is that a good thing? And Trump kind of sidestepped the question, right? Because he was like, well, I don't know if they're actually going to get the money. Basent said the same thing. He was like, the money's inevitable. They were going to get it anyway. The reason that oil was sanctioned was so that the Iranians can't get the money. But both Basent and Trump know we need to increase supply. And the only way to increase supply is to unsanction not only Iranian oil, but Russian oil. And given that those sanctions have been lifted, hopefully that helps oil prices. But it does come at a cost. And the cost is the Iranians and Russians, make more money. So once again, the oil situation continues to be incredibly risky. Jacob, thank you for the super chat. Greetings from Norway. I'm trying to learn more about options. I watched your 101 video. Do you have any calls far out? Thoughts about NVIDIA and Amazon calls? So 2 things. I do weekly calls. I think in this environment, monthly or 45 days out. Again, it's based on your risk tolerance. But as you can see, every single day, there's something new that pops up. So monitoring those calls every week, I think makes sense. And that allows you to kind of navigate the changing macro environments. So I would just pick every week, every Friday. The Max 7 on your broker might allow you to even do Monday and Wednesday. So you can even keep it like 2 days versus 5 days if you want to really monitor how it goes. And then NVIDIA and Amazon, I think those are perfect candidates for covered calls. They've been stuck in a range. And if you have to own more Amazon or you have to let some of your Amazon go at these levels, you can probably buy them back as the stock retreats, which is what has happened with Amazon and NVIDIA for the past 3 months now. So these stocks have been incredibly stable, even though they've been stuck in a range. NVIDIA basically 170 to 190, Amazon basically 195 to 215. And yeah, I think building long-term positions in these names is not scary. So those are 2 excellent candidates. Even Microsoft is not a horrible candidate, even though the premiums are not as strong on Microsoft versus Amazon and NVIDIA. SOFI back above 17. Back above 17 as that goes green. Iran still up 7%. Oklo's up 4%. ARM's up 3%. Netflix was below 90 at one point on Friday. That's back at 92. Broadcom 323. Delo's up 5%. They had good earnings last week. Rivian as well up 8%. There were some reports on their chips being sold last week to different autonomous or OEMs that want to become autonomous, which I guess is making Rivian an FSD type of play to an extent. Even though I kind of think Tesla's winning, Waymo's winning in that race, but Rivian, that's up as well. Figma got hit last week because Google came out with a competitor, a pseudo competitor. Figma flat on the day. This stock just, they ended up IPOing through a really bad AI narrative. Like it was good for them to IPO, but within a month of them IPOing, every big Adobe or Google or OpenAI came out with a competing product. And it's not really affected their growth. They're still growing like 40%. But just like Duolingo, it's affecting their narrative. Duolingo right there, 99.22, down or up 1.19%. An Israeli official says the senior Iranian figure the U.S. is talking to is the parliament speaker. Wow. Okay, so the Israelis are saying that the U.S. is talking to the Iranian parliament. Trump refused to say who he was talking to, but if it is the Iranian parliament, then that is a legit source of communication, even if the Iranians are denying that. Let's go to Miran and what he said this morning and how he thinks this inflation story will play out.
To a year and a half out, and there's just not enough information yet about what that looks like.
Communication in the near term, of course, matters. The chairman in the news conference last week really vowing to anchor inflation expectations. Do you think that's a worthwhile pursuit at this point?
I do. Look, traditional central banking, Federal Reserve wisdom is that oil shocks hit headline inflation, but they don't really pass that much into core as much as they do into headline. And the 2 ways that you would want to respond to it. And so therefore you typically look through an oil shock. Now the 2 exceptions would be if inflation expectations beyond the first year start to move higher. That hasn't happened thus far. Inflation expectations for the first year out have moved higher, of course. But as I look at the CPI swap market beyond the first year, there hasn't been that much movement. Medium term, 5-year, longer term, 5-year forward expectations have actually been coming down lately, right? So there's no evidence of that. And the other reason why you would want to respond to an oil shock is if you saw a wage price spiral, if you saw wages responding to oil price increases, gas price increases, that could result in the type of reinforcing inflation dynamics that you want to forestall. Now, again, thus far, there's little evidence of that. In fact, wage pressures have been declining for the last few years on a steady basis. So that's also something that I don't really see right now.
So the labor market's just not strong enough to worry about it.
I think the labor market still could use additional support from monetary policy. And that's why I dissented last meeting, as I've continued to dissent for.
Which again makes sense to me. If you look at all the anecdotal stuff we're seeing on these headlines, yeah, the labor market's not in a good spot. Even in December, Jay Powell said the labor market's in a bad spot. He's flipped his mind in January. So, I mean, Miran is at least being consistent with the fact that we should be cutting for the labor market in and of itself.
All previous meetings.
How lonely were you at that committee meeting just last week, voting for a 25 basis point reduction in the face of an energy shock? How robust was the conversation around the table?
Look, I think a lot of people around the table, like me, were hesitant to draw conclusions from the oil news thus far, because, as I said before, we have to look 12 to 18 months out, not what happened to the oil price yesterday, right? And so looking 12 to 18 months out, there's still not enough clarity to think that monetary policy itself should adjust in response to what's happened.
Well, check out the oil futures curve. That has changed. I've just had one eye on December over the last 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
That's gone from the 60s and threatening to break out into the 90s at one point earlier on this morning. That's a change. That's a real step up, no?
It has. And I boosted my, in the summary of economic projections, I boosted my inflation dot for the end of the year to 2.7%, reflecting that in part, right? So there is some expectation of higher headline inflation. However, as I said before, I think it's way too early to draw conclusions that it's bleeding beyond headline inflation in a way.
Which, I mean, look, maybe it is too early. And if it is too early, hopefully it ends up being expectations that don't lead to be as positive. Micron flipping green on the day. But the war's got to end for it to not be early. Because if the war doesn't end, then and oil prices stay at these levels, then obviously it doesn't matter if it's early or not. We're going to see higher inflation. So, I mean, Miran is not totally wrong right there. But it once again is all contingent on when this war comes to an end. And Trump knows that, which is why he keeps going on TV and calling these reporters and saying the war will end soon. Because he knows that's the only thing the oil markets and, quite frankly, the credit markets need to price in order to buy bonds, to reduce yields and get oil to stop selling off. But we're going to have to figure out, when does this war actually end? Bitcoin right there, 71. S&P did get above 660. We have a couple of new headlines. The U.S. is warning the EU to pass a trade deal or risk losing favorable access to LNG. Wow. I mean, that's another level of leverage and negotiating that I didn't really think about. The EU is already so contingent on places like Russia for more oil and gas. Obviously, if oil continues to spike, that just puts the EU in a worse spot. And now Trump's, I mean, based on this Bloomberg headline, potentially using the oil crisis, LNG crisis, to force them to pass a better trade deal. Which, if that's the only option they have to continue to get access to LNG, yeah, that would be something that leads to a potential deal. And again, we saw that headline that an Israeli official says the senior Iranian figure in the U.S. is in contact. That is the parliament speaker, Mohammed Bagher Ghalibaf. I'm probably saying his name wrong, but that is the guy who apparently Trump is talking to. VG still down 1% on the day. LNG, which is Cheniere, ticker symbol LNG, they got an upgrade today by Morgan Stanley to 315 from 275. So they continue to increase their price targets as they think this war will continue to last. Goldman Sachs over the weekend said they increased their projections on where oil will go. They are now projecting a much higher level from their 2025 early predictions, going above the 120 range, which, if that happens, again, not going to be the best. Did we hit 160? Did we hit it on Palantir? I think we did. We did indeed. When is the last time we hit 160? Well, I think it was actually last week. But when's the actual last time before that? We hit 160 for a brief moment on March 9th. So it was about 3 weeks ago. And then before that, it was February 3rd. So realistically, it's been a month and a half since we've sustained above 160. Let's see if we can hold above it. And then before February 3rd, it was around mid-January. So it's been a while since we've broken above these levels. Getting some decent green candles right there, 6.12% on the day. GEV is also up 8% on the day. Look at that. GEV 914. GEV and Palantir being the big winners of the day. Let me pull up the heat map here as well and see what that's looking like. I mean, it's pretty freaking green. There's not a lot of red here, folks. Micron was the only thing that was red, and that just flipped green. We have not had a day like this in a while. The question is, can we hold it? Question is, can we hold it? What does the options market look like after the witching event? So again, quad witching was on Friday, and that resulted in a lot of different things that happened, and potentially that accelerated some of the sell-off we saw on Friday. I don't know how aggressive the options market is going to become to the upside, aka long calls, because again, we looked at the put skew ratio last week. It's the highest level we've seen in 10 years, or sorry, in 4 years, since 2021. So a general sense of the options market is people are buying a lot of protection because they're doubtful of this rally lasting. Does that flip to net long exposure, at least in terms of long calls? Because we haven't seen that in about 5 months. We've steadily seen short interest rise in the options market, and then put premiums rise, which means put volume as well has been rising in the options market. I mean, does that flip to actual long calls getting the brunt of the excitement? It'll take probably a couple of weeks to see if that shift happens, but as of now, it's still skewed to the puts. SOXL's up 9.7% of the day. This is 3x leveraged semis. SPY just hit a high of day, 661. Almost a full 2%, folks. SanDisk getting a pump. Micron now going green. SanDisk up 4%. What's red? Planet Labs is red. Enphase and SolarEdge are getting hit. SolarEdge down 8% today. Firefly's down. Lockheed Martin is down. Broadcom is up. The fintech names are all green. Square, Coinbase, Affirm, SoFi, Hood now 73. The SaaS names are pretty much all green. Yup, across the board, except Confluent. The semis are all green. The Mag 7 are all green. Meta, 580 to 605. Lemonade, are we green on Lemonade? We are 7% up on Lemonade. I mean, again, yo, do you believe it or not? That's the question. Do you believe it or not? That is the question. Which, I don't know. Like, I want to believe it so badly. I really do. I really do. But who knows? Matt at 580 looked crazy. I agree. Amit was talking like he was at a funeral last week. Now he's excited like he's at a shotgun wedding. But that's how this market's been, right? Obviously, like, my energy will also shift with the nature of the markets, because that's just what it means to cover it every single day. But I think the one thing I've been pretty consistent about, though, is once again thinking that it's choppy. And my actions with selling the covered call has kind of proven that I think it's choppy. I mean, if I thought we were just going straight up, I wouldn't be selling calls. I think eventually we will get a real taco in V-shape. I don't know if it's this week. And I hope it is this week, because I'd rather be stuck rolling my calls than not selling them and assuming that I'm right, that we V-shape. But obviously I can't call the timing on this, and I don't think anyone can. Amazon right there, 212. Dixie's dumping. That's also bullish. If people are getting out of the dollar. All the things that need to happen. Dixie down, 10-year down, gold and silver flipping green, markets up. Gold is basically flat on the day. Silver just went up 3%. All the signs are there for a potential real reversal, but is it actually going to happen? Is going to happen. Why do you bring a lot of energy in the down days? There's nothing to celebrate then. That's true, but someone's got to be energetic when we're all losing money. So might as well be me. Might as well be me. VIX is also dumping. VIX is also dumping. VIX is what? Where are we down? We're down like 7% now. I think more than that. VIX is 10.4%. All right. Oil down almost 10%. Yeah, that's the other thing I forgot to mention in terms of the signals we're looking at. Oil going down is another signal. I mean, 10% move is not small. Now, granted, it could feel small because it could reverse up 10% easily. We saw that last week. But it's not horrible. It's not horrible. Can you explain rolling calls in detail? Rolling calls at its core just means you're buying back your current call and you're selling a new call. So again, you can ask ChatGPT about this stuff. It gives a lot of examples and it can really explain it. But at its core, if you sell a call on NVIDIA at 180 and NVIDIA's at 185, you'll be underwater on that call, which means the premium you were given is now less than the premium that the call is trading for, aka you're in a deficit. So you have to buy back that call and sell a new call. Well, if you don't have the money to buy back that call, then you need to collect premium from the new call that you're selling and use some of that money to buy back the old call, and the net premium that exists between the difference of the new premium versus the amount you have to pay to get out of the current premium that the call is trading at is the net credit that you can achieve, which means you have to add some extrinsic value, which in this case would be time, to the intrinsic value of the contract, which means you would have to roll out a couple weeks, and if you're in a really bad position, a couple months. So, you know, if NVIDIA goes to 190 and I have 185 calls, I would probably have to roll out a month to pick a new strike that would get me closer to being in the money. But I would welcome that situation happening versus not having any protection on the downside. 662 on the S&P. 662. Or you just get your shares called away. That's also true. Which, you know, if you're fine with that happening, then that's not the worst thing. Dude, 2% move on. When's the last time we had a 2% move? It's been a minute, right? Like a real legit 2% move actually holding it. I know we have a lot more hours left to see if we hold it, but it hasn't happened in a while. It hasn't happened. Even on Friday, we were down 1.4, but then we reversed 50% of that because we were up 0.73 in the after hours. So we haven't had a 2% move to the downside or to the upside, I think, in a few months. We just got to see if this thing can hold it now. NVIDIA high of day. NVIDIA 178. There you go. Palantir almost 160 again. SanDisk's at 4.59%. AAOI, that photonics name, that's up 7% on the day. Light, Coherent, that's getting some love. SATL, Satellogic, wow, 20% move. This thing was down 3% in the morning. It had a good earnings last week, 20% as that goes green. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright stated at a conference that global oil prices have not risen sufficiently to trigger demand destruction. I mean, I think he's not necessarily wrong on that. Does anyone feel, put in the chat, if the rising oil prices has substantially changed the amount you're spending in the economy right now? I'm sure it's definitely had some impact on an aggregate basis. Has it ruined consumer confidence yet? We're not seeing that in the data. I'm sure anecdotally, people might be experiencing that. But if it persists, then yeah, I think that's going to happen. I drive a Tesla, so I don't feel that. Yeah, to be honest, I did experience. I mean, that is fair, because when I went driving over the weekend, I was like, man, like, I don't have to worry about oil price. Like, I drove past the gas station. I was like, I don't have to pay $4 for gas. It's one thing that didn't affect me with the Tesla. But nonetheless, not everyone drives a Tesla. And obviously, if oil prices continue to go up, that's not a good thing. Also, I wonder if there is still a correlation between the electric grid charging you more kilowatts per hour when you're charging your Tesla based on oil prices going up. I feel like there is somewhat of a correlation there. I haven't experienced it when I filled up my Tesla like 2 days ago. It was the same price I always pay. But obviously there could be some correlation if oil prices continue to persist. Yeah, electricity still comes from oil, exactly. So now again, I haven't felt it yet. I mean, I charged it last night. It was like $20. It's the same that it always is. But it could persist, and that could be the issue. SPY right there, 661.58. The airline stocks, by the way, they should be catching a bid right now. Yep, United's up 5%. JetBlue is up 5%. Delta is up 3.7%. What's the other one? Southwest. That's up 4.6%. American Airlines, that's up 5%. This is an easy recovery play on oil. But if you buy these, you have to really feel oil is going to recover. But they are the single easiest sector in the economy to benefit from lower oil prices. It's just they've been so volatile because we go up and down every day when it comes to oil. Martin says I got free charging for a year. Wow. That is not too bad. Free charging for a year, dude. That'd be fun. I usually do charge my Tesla when I go home as well because we have the charger. This week I didn't. This week I paid for it, but the incremental cost to energy prices in your house, it doesn't seem like it's that aggressive. Nebius right there, that's up 2%, and then SMCI that goes flipping green at 2.76. Is this a counter trend bounce before we go lower? If it is, then once again, we will be playing this game of whack-a-mole with the markets. I mean, look, if we reclaim 665, which is, I think, one of the sort of core levels to solidify a counter trend bounce, even 660, like really reclaim it, not just touch it, but actually close above that today, then it's definitely a counter trend. Is it enough to disrupt the trend? Maybe for the short term, but again, like, does it even matter if Trump says something tomorrow that's bearish? Like, it doesn't. None of that TA actually comes to fruition. We were at 640 on the S&P this morning, 640. And the only reason we're up is because of what Trump said. So I don't know if we can say it's a bull trap or not, but my goodness, we've been here so many times. Redwire, all the space names now starting to get hit. Redwire down 3%. Rock Lab is up 1%, so not getting hit as bad. ASTS is red by about 1%. 661.24 is the NFP level. That is correct, which we did break through today, at least for a little bit. Dan Niles, he's on. Let's see what he has to say based on some of these new updates.
It was a good time to consider putting some cash to work. And so if you look at today, now you've got two people that seem like they want to end this. And the thing I kind of focused on is there's one thing President Trump's focused on. He's got midterms coming in November. He can't have this go on for too long. And it's not how high oil prices go, it's how long they stay there. And so if oil spikes, then it comes right back down. You're going to be just fine with the economy. And that's what you're seeing right now. And so I think the names that you liked, it's a great time to add some more exposure to that. What's really encouraging to me is the asset-heavy names. So I always say you need to get messy. So utilities, materials, energy, staples, and industrials. You look at those names, even though they've had a great year so far, up 9% year-to-date on Friday's close, they're up another 1.5% today. And so that tells you want to have a mix between asset-heavy names, be well diversified. But I think the AI trade and we can talk about this, but with OpenClaw having come out, that's a good area still. And I think you're hitting another inflection point in token demand.
All right, explain what you mean there. Inflection point, still a good area. What are you saying?
Well, I mean, the key here is if you look at it, the whole AI trade's been about training pretty much up until this point. Then on November 24th, you had this thing called ClaudeBot come out. And that got finalized into what's called OpenClaw at the end of January. And you've seen a massive uptick in agentic AI. And so in basic terms, over the last 2 months, you've seen 130% increase in token generation. Now, the prior 2 months leading up to this, to the end of January, that was up 20%. So you've gone from 20% growth in tokens to 130, because now people are saying, hey, this agentic AI stuff is actually kind of useful. And with that kind of increase, you're going to see all the stuff underneath it that supports it starting to ramp up again. And so, NVIDIA hasn't been performing. Everybody's talking about, oh my God, it's dead. You need to move to something else, or whatever your favorite AI infrastructure related names are. But I think what you're going to see is as more and more people start to deploy things that are actually useful, that's eventually going to lead to these AI trades, or at least my favorite ones, starting to work again. And so that's why I think you want to have this barbell of Halo names and AI names,
right,
to be well diversified.
But Dan, when I hear OpenClaw and I hear, you talk about agents, then I tend to think about the other trade that's worked so well until lately, which is shorting a lot of the software related names. Take a look at Microsoft, for example, down 20% this year. Where are you coming out? I mean, they can't all be going out of business, can they? There's got to be some value there, or do you just not touch it?
Well, it's a great question, David. So, one of the things I always say is, look, it's going to take time to sort this out, right? Mark Andreessen wrote that great piece in the Wall Street Journal in 2011 saying software is eating the world. Well, we've only been, 5-6 months into this thing where people are realizing, you know what, AI is going to upend a lot of software. So I think you're going to see a really good rally. You've already seen that in the software ETF IGV. But I think on a longer term basis, you are going to get a lot of software companies getting absolutely wiped out. Because if you don't own the underlying data, which you can't afford to get corrupted, you're the system of record with those. Or you're not protecting that data and that you're a security company, or you're not providing entertainment that people don't want to create. Nobody wants to create a video game, a high-end video game. I think those areas will do well. And so that's where I'm looking in software. But,
So it seems like Dan is making the same argument a lot of these other analysts are making, which is that this war has to end soon. Inevitably. NVIDIA right there, 177.85. And if he's right about that, which is the war can't continue this long, particularly around the idea of midterms, which, I mean, I'm kind of wondering how much Trump still cares about the midterms. But if he does, then yeah, we've got to see eventually this end, right? Like, it has to. I think if Trump cares about these damn midterms, Palantir 159, then we should see some resolution on this. Software is up 2.3% of the day, and at least that's the logical argument that all the analysts are coming to in terms of a conclusion, which is a reasonable thing to conclude. It's just how much do we think Trump cares enough to end this sooner than usual? 4.7% on BTC, 71,000. 71,000. Still in extreme fear. Yes, we are. We were at 15 last night. Right now, we are at 19. So, and we're still seeing some fear. Any Broadcom news? No. Broadcom is just, in my opinion, those earnings were not respected at all. I mean, this stock was at 350, fell to 310 on Friday. So, you talk about counter trend bounces, but Broadcom should be one of the beneficiaries of that, given the earnings they put up. I think Micron should as well. I mean, I know it's up a lot this year. Broadcom's down this year, but you would think that could be a bounce to the upside. Amazon, that's up 3%. CoreWeave's up 2.7. Nebius up 1.2. Intel's up 3%. Transmedics, that's up 2.5. Meta, again, back above 600. Next Decade still down, but Broadcom getting a little bit of a move. Amit is looking like a Starbucks employee. That's actually hilarious. That's legit hilarious. Duolingo, sorry, that's a 99. DraftKings at 24.65. DraftKings at 24.65. Redcap, that's also up a little bit on the day. You guys said I look like a UPS driver, a Best Buy employee, and now a freaking barista. We need to make an ETF out of all the employees I look like. See if that outperforms. UPS, Best Buy, and Starbucks. Where is Starbucks? Is that up this year? Starbucks, 94.44. By the way, guys, I think I'm done with my instant coffee phase. Like, I was kind of forcing myself to like it. Starbucks up 12% this year. I don't even have the energy to make instant coffee every morning now. Like, even getting the water, heating it up, like it just seems like a chore at this point. So I think I'm done with that. I need something new. Dude, I went to Whole Foods yesterday just to buy that iced tea that like probiotic iced tea that I said I like so much. And they didn't have it in stock. And I was actually mad. Like, I literally went to Whole Foods just to get that thing. Also, I saw this in the parking lot of Whole Foods, which is absolutely ridiculous. I've never seen this before, but some of you guys said in Arizona and California, you have this low emitting and fuel efficient vehicle parking only. It's like they have parkings just for EVs, just for Teslas. Like, what is this? They're segregating the cars to park if you're fuel efficient or not. I've never seen, of course it was out of Whole Foods. I've never seen that shit, ever. I park in those all the time. Like, what would they do if you passed a gas vehicle inside there? Like, would the cops give you a ticket if you didn't have a Tesla or a Rivian and you parked there? I just found that hilarious. I found that absolutely hilarious. Myth looks like a spelling bee champion. Dude, I feel so bad every time I see an Indian win the spelling bee. Because I'm like, man, that kid is a real Indian. You asked me to spell some of these words, bro. I would lose in round 1. I would lose in the rounds to even get to the first round, dude. I think an Indian was won the spelling bee for like the last 10 years. I think maybe last year it was someone who wasn't. It's usually a 12 to 13-year-old Indian kid that has won the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Literally for the past decade. Which makes me feel bad. Yeah, spell Massachusetts. There's no way. I can barely say it. I'm not going to be able to spell it. VG just flipped green. I feel bad because even if they win, they don't smile. That does happen all the time. They're just like, oh, cool, I won. That's what it is, bro. Sometimes, that's kind of how Indian parents are too. I remember getting good grades in school, and my dad would be like, cool, good job. But he wasn't like, oh my goodness, you got an A. He'd be like, no, that's expected. Like, you're supposed to get an A. I remember once, bro, I got a 92 and I showed it to my mom out of 100. And she was just like, what'd you mess up on? And I was like, bro, it's a 92. Like, that's still pretty good. She was like, yeah, but like, you could have got 100. And I was just like, all right, whatever. GEV, new all-time high. Look at that, 914, touch 920 on the day. Up 7.3%. Up 7.3%. 92 will get you disowned. Yeah, that's facts, bro. This is why this dream of me failing high school is so weird, because I was 4th in my class senior year. So I don't know why I keep getting this dream of me failing. Oh, by the way, so my mom works at a school as a district supervisor. And on Friday, she texted me that her school is now going through one of the biggest controversies around cheating, because they found 4 kids using ChatGPT during the New Jersey state exam to cheat and to send pictures to each other and then feed those pictures into ChatGPT. And then they told other kids. And there's now this like massive investigation. Like, literally the feds are getting involved, and the entire state testing of my mom's school might be completely dismissed because now they don't know how many people were involved in this process for using ChatGPT. And I was pretty surprised that it got that intense, and they really could have gotten away with it. The problem is there's this one girl who started cheating. She got way too cocky about it, and she started like telling people that she cheated. And then finally someone got so upset that the other person was cheating and that they were actually studying that they reported it. And once they reported it, there had to be an investigation. Then they found out more people were doing it. I was like, goodness gracious. So ChatGPT is the epicenter of some of these kids just saying, screw it, we're gonna cheat. They shouldn't have been a snitch. I agree. Look, in my school, when I was growing up in high school, if you saw someone cheating, you shut the hell up and let them do what they need to do. New generation is soft, bro. And so they feel like they're at a disadvantage. And as a result, you're going to get more of these investigations popping up. U.S. Secretary Energy Chris Wright, he's live. Let's see what he has to say about oil.
Negotiate with. Well, if you look at the military campaign in the first 3 weeks, President Trump's leadership, General Kane of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they've just done a tremendous job. So we are rapidly eliminating Iran's ability to project power to its neighbors. You saw their attempts at longer-range missiles. This conflict is critical to remove the greatest threat to peace in the Middle East, the greatest killer of American soldiers over the last 2 decades, and the campaign's going well. So when the campaign's going well, the other side is thinking, well, maybe there's another way to achieve the same end. And what I love about President Trump, he sets a bold objective, but he's always open for negotiations. If there's a better, simpler way to get the same place we want to get, we're all ears.
But do you think that we can even know who to negotiate with? It's entirely possible we're speaking with people in Iran
and other people in Iran who claim they're the real leaders, because we have no idea what's going on, that we're negotiating with different groups about different things, and that's going to impact the ultimate outcome and the price of energy.
There has been quite a bit of turnover in their energy leadership. So I see where you're going there, Brian. And that's one of the things we'll learn in these dialogues. Who is in power? Are they in power? How is it working? But again, always open for dialogues. There seems to be legitimate interest. We can get to the right place, we'll do it. But we're going to find out who the leaders are and what their authorities are.
So the president said the price of oil will drop like a rock, and it already is. The price of oil is down a lot today, but we're at 89 and change. We're not at 59. We're not at 69. If and when we get a real resolution to this war, whether that's today, tomorrow, or months from now, Mr. Secretary, what are your various scenarios for the price of oil? Because the CEO of United Airlines just said they think we're planning for the possibility of $175 oil.
Yeah, I think that's a business leader being very careful. Fuel costs are massive costs for all the airlines. I think he's being prudent and planning ahead. We certainly don't expect that scenario to unfold. I think that's highly unlikely, but that's what you do when you're leading a business. I think, fortunately, we went into this conflict, thanks to President Trump, with just massive American oil production, good relations with our neighbors overseas. The Saudis, for example, pre-positioned almost 100 million barrels of oil storage out of the Middle East before this conflict began. They didn't know exactly what the plans were, but obviously they could see tensions rising. They positioned oil overseas. The previous administration wouldn't even talk to him or engage with him.
Yeah.
All right, crude is dropping. It's almost 11 a.m., making me feel there's a better shot that this rally is more legit. S&P 660.7. Energy Secretary right there. He's talking with a lot more enthusiasm than he was last week. It seems like, whether you believe it or not, they feel like they have a plan to navigate the energy crisis. By the way, we missed this part of Trump at the airport where he mentioned he doesn't want to say who he's talking to because he thinks they might get killed.
Speaking with Mr. President. A top person. Don't forget, we've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with the man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. It's a little tough. We've wiped out everybody.
Is that the Supreme Leader?
No, not the Supreme Leader. We don't. Well, nobody heard of the second Supreme Leader, the Son. Nobody. We have not heard from the Son. Every once in a while, you see a statement made, but we haven't. We don't know if he's living. But the people that seem to be running it, and they seem that based on really fact, because things they've said have taken place.
Mr. President,
again.
Mr. President, I know you deployed.
I don't want him to be killed. Okay, I don't want him to be killed.
Mr. President, you deployed.
Nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants that job right now. Nobody's exactly looking forward to being the head of that particular country. But perhaps we'll be able to solve that problem.
Mr. President,
I mean, that is also bullish that Trump is literally refusing to say who he's talking to because he is so, one could argue, optimistic that we actually will get to some level of peace, that he literally will not say the guy's name, either because he's lying and he's not talking to anybody, that's one perspective, or because he wants to make sure the guy stays alive so that the conversations can continue. Which signals that he wants this thing to end soon, which is what the market is pricing in. And, if that is being priced in a meaningful way, then hopefully we continue to go up. Again, it was reported that that person is the Speaker of the Parliament in Iran. So maybe that's correct. Maybe that's not. We don't have official confirmation on that, but time will tell to see if this continues or not. Yes, the defense stocks are recovering fast as well. Fun. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Excited for the Chicago meetup. How does it usually go? If you go to the website that I vibe coded over the weekend, which I will annoyingly mention every time, you can go to the meetup section, click on Chicago, get the RSVP link, and that should give you all the details for that. It really was quick, guys. It was like an hour. It was a freaking hour. I was like, goodness gracious, bro. No dragging and dropping, no adjusting anything, just telling it in pure English what to do, and it built it. Like, it was one of the first experiences of like, okay, you extrapolate this to more extreme use cases in the enterprise. There's no way people are going back. This is how business is going to be done. AMD right there, 206.30. That is also green. Synopsys 441. Meta at 604. Where is oil? Are we still below 90? We are we're going up a little bit. We're 89.96. We were at 87. A little bit of a move up, but still down about 8% on the day. Tesla should be making a move as well. How many people thought the Terafab announcement was pretty cool? Tesla up 5% right there. I thought it was very optimistic and exciting. I don't know if they're literally going to be able to replicate and build with 100 million square feet, which is 3 times the amount of Central Park square feet, this massive Terafab. Now, if anyone was going to do it, it was going to be Elon. Just the ambitions that he's laying out. I mean, these numbers just don't seem believable, but that's the point, right? They need so much compute that Elon's trying to get people to realize it is going to be absolutely massive. They need a terawatt of compute. A terawatt of compute is what Elon is guiding for, which is, continuing to make the argument about space data centers as well. Do you think the Tesla merger is going to happen? Absolutely. I don't know when it happens, but there is no way the Tesla merger doesn't happen now. Just based on how Elon was talking, he kept mentioning the synergies between Tesla, XAI, and SpaceX. Like, that has got to be the master plan eventually. So if you buy Tesla, I mean, realistically, I think you're buying SpaceX and keeping those shares for that long-term potential. What do you think of Elon saying he would pay for TSA employees? Yeah, I think that's also what got Trump to say, all right, we need to now send the ICE agents. Elon literally came out over the weekend and said, I volunteer to pay for the salaries of all the TSA employees to come back to work. Because Elon's probably, he flies private, but he's probably realizing like the airport situation is a mess. And that's not good for any company, given airports are, the place of travel for corporate business to take place. And so the fact that he offered that is a sign of how bad the situation has become. BM&R right there, 1.23%. I wonder how much that would cost. Let's ask Gemini. How much would it cost for Elon to pay for a 6-month salary of all TSA employees? A couple billion, right? Yeah, 900 to 1.1 billion. The average salary is $61,000 a year for a TSA employee. And he probably wouldn't have to do it for a year. It would probably be, I said 6 months. And it probably wouldn't be for all TSA employees. Let's say it's 50% of them. So that's 500 million. That's, for Elon, that's nothing. So, I mean, he theoretically could put up the money to do that. 206.40 on AMD. Robinhood's RVI fund, yes, getting a bit of recovery right there, 24.47. I think it IPO'd at 25. So that one is very close to breaking even here. Optimus robots will run the TSA. Dude, that like, can we imagine a world where that doesn't happen one day? That robots are running some of these types of jobs? Like, now granted, TSA, it's one of those things where when you have to pat people down and check them and all this stuff, I mean, a robot can definitely do that. I don't know how people would feel about it, but yeah, it does. I mean, like the person who checks your bag when it goes through the scanner. I mean, theoretically, a robot could be probably more accurate at seeing if there's any issues versus a human eye. So maybe that is something that ends up getting replaced long term. No, not 900 billion, 900 million to $1 billion. Which again would not be that crazy for Elon. Maybe he got confused with TSA with Tesla. TSLA over TSA. Bitcoin is still green. BTC 71.2. BM&R down a bit, but still up with Ethereum 1.2%. What else do we have? Let's see what other headlines The main headline for the day was Trump pivoting on these attacks. Israel says they struck a member of the Iranian IRGC in Beirut. That headline just came in right now. Chevron CEO says some physical impact in Hormuz is not priced into the paper markets for oil. And then JP Morgan's kicking off an $8 billion junk bond sale for the EA buyout. So you have JP Morgan continuing to finance this EA buyout with more debt. I mean, it seems like things are kind of holding on. Let's go back to Chris Wright and see what else he has to say about energy.
It's a lot, but it's only one day of global production. I mean, that's kind of what we use every day.
Yeah, but it's not the what matters is the degree of the interruption, right? And this is a large interruption. You know, round numbers, maybe as much as 15 million barrels a day. So 100 million barrels I look at as a week. That's an extra week beyond global stocks, beyond floating storage, beyond our strategic petroleum reserve.
Sarah?
Right, it's Sarah Eisen in the studio. President Trump just suggested that, you know, under these negotiations, we could see a scenario where the U.S. and Iran jointly control the Strait of Hormuz. I'm curious how that would work and what the plan is.
Well, look, these are early on in the negotiations. I certainly don't want to get ahead of the president there, Sarah. But clearly the world has seen allowing Iran to control the Strait of Hormuz as they have on and off for decades is just an unacceptable outcome. We need to have an end with some assurity that you can have free flow of shipping traffic in and out of the straits. Not just for the United States, but for all the Gulf nations, certainly all the nations of Asia and Europe and around the world.
So is the way this ends... Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to follow up. Is the way this ends in the U.S. victorious, that they no longer have the control over the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, their country's still going to be there, but we need to be in a position where their ability to threaten the Straits of Hormuz is either gone or dramatically reduced from where it's been the last few years, the last several decades.
So if this war were to go on, and let's all hope for we all want a speedy outcome, okay? We're seeing a sale from the SPR. Some of that's already been delivered very quick.
Yes.
Okay, but with the previous administration's sale from the SPR, there was some worries that the functionality, is the SPR broken? Is the mechanism for getting stuff out broken? Could there be another release? We're starting to drain it, by the way. Could there be another release from the SPR if needed?
Well, of course, there could be. I think that's highly unlikely. Two things on that. They did damage the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in 2022. So we are drawing from only 3 of the 4 storage caverns. That is unfortunate. Also, they sold the oil, took that money, put it into the federal budget, and spent money on their Green New Deal to further drive up the price of oil. We're doing something very different. We're not selling those barrels. We're trading those barrels. We're trading a barrel for delivery in the near term for over 1.2 barrels of oil for delivery back to us later next year. So we'll end out with a Strategic Petroleum Reserve that has more oil in it at the end of next year than it does today.
The American consumer probably doesn't care about the price of oil, but they care about the price of gasoline or maybe heating oil if they're in the New England area. You've got the audience right now, CNBC's huge audience. You could speak to them directly. Gasoline prices back to 2022 levels. They're at $5.56 in parts of California and Washington State and Hawaii. What is your message to the American people right now about what we can still do to bring gasoline prices back down?
There's things we can do on refinery efficiencies. There's a few more levers we have to pull there that we're looking at quickly. The goal, of course, is to get them down as quickly as possible. But my appeal to the American people is we've had 47 years of threats from Iran, which have artificially raised energy prices for decades. We're going through a short-term period of disruption right now, but the long-term benefits will be enormous. Think of years ahead and decades ahead for you and your children. You're going to see a much better world. You got to get through a few weeks of disruption, and we're doing everything we can to mitigate those disruptions.
Well, you got every major oil.
All right. right, that continues to be the message by our administration officials. This idea that, yeah, think of the children. Give up 50 days of higher oil prices for 50 years of security. That's what Bessent said over the weekend as well. I mean, look, people might agree with that, but at the end of the day, if this starts burning a hole in people's wallets for too long, I don't know how many people are gonna be okay with having a long-term. Basically, he said to be a long-term investor. he said, look, I know you bought the dip, and I know the dip keeps dipping, but if you think in decades instead of days, instead of hours, then everything will be okay. Which is fine in the investing context, but when it comes to your day-to-day life with oil prices going up, that's where things can go the opposite direction. Can you talk about ONDS earnings? We covered it in the morning. I was very impressed by it. I thought it was good. Doubling the revenue growth capacity. I thought it made sense. I need to actually understand the strategic outlook of this company. And I'm not just going to buy it for the hell of it. I'm not going to buy it just because I interviewed the CEO. Like, I'm just not that type of investor. I need to understand why they're acquiring all these smaller companies. What is the sort of navigational trajectory that they have in terms of modern warfare? What's the strategic business mechanism of acquiring these smaller companies and then putting them together? I really have just not gone through that rabbit hole yet. And I also need to figure out valuation. Like, is this actually cheap? It trades at 140 times price to sales right now. It doesn't feel cheap. Now, obviously, if the expectations for growth next year are massive, then if you look at the forward price to sales estimate, that might be a lot lower, which is stuff I need to go through. But as of now, I'm skeptical of leveraging into any drone stock that's been up based on defense, or not just drone stock, but thematic stock that has been pumped due to the war, whether that's drones, energy, natural gas, etc. Now, granted, ONDS is more high beta than it is just drones. So I do think if we get a real taco, I think ONDS starts to move. I mean, this stock was like close to 15 earlier in the year. So I think it's possible, but just need to have a broader understanding of it. What about Grab? I talked about that in the morning as well. I encourage people to listen to the call that management had this morning. Bank of America came out, said 620. Citigroup came out, Morgan Stanley came out, said 640. Citigroup's at $6. I mean, all the analysts seem pretty damn bullish about this expansion into Taiwan. And this is what I've been waiting for them to do with their money. Like, I want them to use the money to buy assets. They got a 50% discount compared to what Uber tried to buy it at, and grow the business. You can sacrifice margins in the short term, but they are doing this in a profitable way, which is good. And just continue to compound long term. I will be buying more Grab. I'm probably going to be buying like 10,000 shares once I finish contributing to my solo 401k, which is probably in a couple weeks. And so I'll let people know when I do, but I will be dumping all of that into Grab. S&P 660, that's up 1.9. NVIDIA, that's up 2.84%. Israeli senior official. Israel knew that mediation efforts by several countries were underway to initiate talks between Iran and the U.S., but was surprised by Trump's statements. Wow. Interesting. So you've got Egypt, Turkey, and Pakistan that were seen as the countries trying to mediate between the U.S. and Iran. Israel was surprised by these statements. They also said, we were surprised that the contacts are progressing and that there are apparently agreements on 15 points. Oh, that's a real number. 15 points. Maybe that's what Axios was talking about in freaking on Saturday. Yeah, I didn't even talk about it this morning, but Axios came out and the markets pumped in the weekend futures because they said Trump is like legit getting ready for a peace deal. And then Trump came out and then tweeted that whole, you guys have 48 hours before I bomb everybody. And that made futures go red. But if they're talking about 15 specific agreements, which is close to what Axios was reporting, then maybe they were right. Maybe there legit is a peace deal. And I don't know if the Israelis are happy about it, but nonetheless, there might be something. NVIDIA 177.95. 177.95. Didn't Mitch just advocate for robots patting people down? I hope it doesn't happen, but then again, a robot would be a lot cheaper than a human to pay for TSA. Speaking of Jason right here, I don't know if we're doing Technical Tuesday tomorrow, guys, and it's not my fault. Jason might have an appointment because he is bringing a new child into the world. And well, not he, his wife, but you get my point. But he might have a baby appointment tomorrow, which is a lot more important than Technical Tuesday. So he will be live today. I'm going to link his channel. I'm probably going to get off in like 5 minutes, and you guys can head to Jason. He'll be live around noon, and you guys can get some Technical Monday from him. But we're going to try to find a different time. The problem is we can't do it on Wednesday because Jason is too busy, and we definitely can't do it on Thursday because I need to go to the airport to catch a flight to LA and TT. You know, Jason, what we could do is maybe we do the market close starting at 2 p.m. on Thursday, and we go from 2 to 4:30, and we do TT in the middle of the day because there's no way we can do it from our usual time since I'm just going to have to get to the airport like 3 hours early. But there might not be TT today. Today, though, or tomorrow. Today, TJ will be on the channel. TJ, a lot of you guys know him. Big guy in the option selling community. Taught me how to do covered calls and puts. He hasn't been on the channel for a while. And so he's been growing tremendously, been building his own account, his brand. And he will be on the channel today on the close. We don't have anything crazy happening on the close today. I mean, there's no earnings, nothing like that. So TJ will be on at around, I think, 4:30. And we will talk to him. Wow, look at the S&P. High of day, 662.50. 662.50. It feels more real than not. It feels more real than not. I thought Thursday was for Chris. Yeah, but we couldn't do the market close last Thursday because I was flying. We were supposed to do Friday, but then I fell asleep because I have the red eye. We're probably not going to do Thursday today. I'll ask Chris if he can come on Wednesday. Or I'll ask Chris if he can come on tomorrow. And so instead of Technical Tuesday, it would be Macro Tuesday. I'll ask Chris. But we missed the past couple of weeks because of all the traveling. Nubank as well. Look at that. These international names getting some love. 6.5% right there. ASML also. Nice little 6% move. A lot of lithography talk over the weekend as well, given the Terafab. VIX should continue to be, yeah, look at the VIX, still down 10%, 24.20, which is helping the S&P get some love right here. All right, I think that's it. I hope I am leaving you with a very healthy market, and when I come back in the next 3 hours, we just need 3 to 4 hours of nothing stupid happening. That's it. That's all we're asking for today. Because if we can close a 2% move on the S&P, I mean, obviously we need multiple days of the trend to be intact, but man, would that be a counter trend bounce, even if that bounce is short term. And we just need to see if we can keep it up. Before I leave, this one news update in. And I mean, let's see, dude. Let's see. Can we remain another 3 hours without getting hit?
Hormuz, if these negotiations work out, with control being shared by, quote, me and the Ayatollah, whoever the next Ayatollah is. Now, through the weekend, we've been following all this, largely getting information on the war in Iran through the president's social media account, which has been something of a head-snapping exercise. If you can follow along, on Friday at 9:43 a.m., the president wrote, "The fight is militarily won." Then on Friday at 5:13, he says, "We are getting very close to meeting our objectives as we consider winding down our great military efforts in the Middle East." But then on Saturday, we got this 7:44 p.m. post, the president making a dramatic threat. If Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. And then this morning, this is the thing that triggered the market move today at 7:23 a.m. The president reversed that threat he made over the weekend, saying the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. He said that he would delay for 5 days his threat to destroy those power plants. And talking to reporters this morning, the president said there were discussions yesterday that he described as stretching late into the night, but without really saying who participated in those talks or what specifically was discussed. A lot more to learn on what these back channel conversations may be and where they may be going, guys.
Yeah, although, Eamon, he did seem to indicate Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are involved in these conversations. At least that's what I thought I heard him say. As for who they're with, that was sort of more of a mystery, other than the president saying we're dealing with a man who is a respected leader. But again, to your point, not making that clear. He also indicated, interestingly, that it was the threat to the electricity production in Iran that he said at least brought them to make the call to have talks. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, he said that the Iranians called the U.S., not the U.S. calling the Iranians. He's often eager to suggest that he's not the one requesting negotiations, that the other side is the one requesting negotiations. And David, he put this in the context of a lifetime of deal making. He said, I'm a deal maker. This is what I do. This is what I'm doing now. So you take that sort of as one set of scenarios. And the other set of scenarios is the president was asked about the $200 billion request that the Pentagon is making for more funding for the war. He said it's always nice to have that. And he was asked about U.S. Marines and additional U.S. troops being sent to the region. He said, I'm not going to talk about that. That would be a terrible question for me to answer. So at the same time, the president is talking about winding things down in negotiations. He's also requesting more, keeping the request alive for more funding and continuing to send troops to the region. So keeping up the pressure on that side of the equation as well.
Yeah, I mean, he pointed to Venezuela as, see, we can do this. We can put new leadership in place that'll be more friendly and pro-America. And I think that's the biggest question here, Eamon, is who this man, this well-respected man is, who the leaders are, and is it someone that the U.S. can deal with and negotiate here in good faith. It's unclear who's running the country, right?
Yeah, we just don't know at this point. And the question will be, is Iran going to be able to follow that Venezuela model? The president said that from the outset of this, and really hoping for a revolution in the streets by the Iranian people that has not yet materialized. Maybe there's some hope that if the bombing campaign moderates, that the Iranian people might take to the streets and replace leadership on their own. But all of that very murky and unclear right now. And so if you're betting on the outcome of all this, what you know is the president is signaling de-escalation this morning while keeping in his, the arrow in his quiver of re-escalating, because we do have that slug of money that he wants, and we do have those ground troops on the way to the region.
Iran Security Committee spokesman says Trump is lying or talking nonsense, rules out talks, says only force will be understood as strikes and oil price surging shift momentum. I mean, once again, you have a lot of conflicting narratives right here. Trump says he spoke to someone from Iran. The Iranians saying you spoke to nobody. Trump is reiterating that this war is going to end soon. The Iranians say it's not going to end soon. S&P 500 at the highs of the day, oil's at the low of the day. I don't know what to believe, but I know what the market believes. And based on the price action, the market believes that this war is ending soon. Otherwise, it would not be up. Anything can change that belief, but there is at least some level of potential stability based on how the market's reacting to this. What a crazy freaking time, dude. What a crazy freaking time to invest. Like, I think we all knew we were in for a crazy 4 years when Trump became president. But, I mean, this is just... And then again, for the people that don't really care about investing all day, and they don't pay attention to the news, maybe they're not feeling how crazy it is. But when you're in it, when you're inside of the ecosystem, just seeing every single update, it's literally a movie being played back and forth, writing itself in front of us. Just absolutely crazy. Where will you post if you aren't doing a market open, market close? I'm going to make a section on the website that will have, usually I do it on X or YouTube, or I tell people in advance, but on the website, it'll have an official section with the schedule for streaming. I just didn't code that part into the website yet. But yeah, if we are missing a certain number of days, usually when we're traveling, again, if we miss one close in a week or something because I was at some event, that's different. But if we're at GTC and there's multiple days we missed, that's when that section of the website will be updated. All right, word of the day. What do we got? Trenchant. Trenchant. Sharp, incisive, and effective, especially in expression or analysis. Her trenchant breakdown cut through the noise and got straight to what mattered. Trenchant. I've actually never heard this word before. Let's see if we can pull up how to pronounce this. Trenchant.
Trenchant.
Okay. Not too bad. Pretty easy. Sharp, incisive, and effective, especially in expression or analysis. Hopefully, Trump will be trenchant in expressing how much he wants this war to end. We'll be able to move on. Hopefully, we will be able to move on. That's how you say it, right? Incisive. Dude, I better not get the word of how to define the actual word of the day wrong. Oh my God, dude. Is this actually... I can just tell. I can tell this is wrong.
Incisive.
Oh, I hate everything. It's a C-I. Where the hell does that turn into sigh?
Incisive.
That's not even that common of a word, bro. You guys can't make it. That's not a common word. It looked like incisive. It looked like freaking incisive. That's why I keep getting those dreams, bro. That's why I keep getting those dreams. All right. We're done for the day. Well, not for the day, for the morning. I'll be back in the market open. We'll keep it going. Hopefully nothing messes this up. We're up 2% across the board. NASDAQ 2.4, IWM 3.6, the Dow 2.48. Let's do one last poll before we leave. And that poll is going to be a very simple poll. You think we hold till the end of the day? Or I'll make it even better. So S&P by end of day. Red plus 2%, plus 1.5%, or plus 1%. So you think we lose 50% of the gains? You think we get even more than what we're getting right now at 2%? Or you think we not go flat, but lose off some of the momentum if we go 1.5? 30% of you say plus 1%. All right, so 30% of people, the majority, think we're going to lose 50% of the gains that we had. 17% of people say red. I think that's a fair breakdown. Well, we have a spelling bee contest at the meetup. You know, that would actually be kind of funny if we did a freaking spelling bee at the meetup. I don't think we'll do that this time. But I'm very, very excited for the LA meetup again. I'll put the link in the chat for those that are going. Should be a fun time. It really is always fun to connect with people in real life, especially when shit like this is going on, and just talk to other human beings. So very excited for it. Should be fun. We got about 15 tickets left, so people can grab their tickets if you're going to be in LA Saturday, 6 to 12 in Culver City. And then after LA, we will get ready for Chicago, and hopefully, I mean, dude, if Trump can legit taco by Friday, and then Saturday we all get to go to the meetup and have like a massive green rally, which is what happened in Miami, that would be really fun. But we got to see if that plays out. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody. Love you all. Appreciate it. Jason will be live in about 40 minutes. Again, I will link his channel right here. So if we don't get to do TT tomorrow, at least you'll be able to get some questions in for him today, as he will be live in a bit. And I'll be live for the market close. We'll have TJ on. We have not had TJ on in a while, so it'll be fun to talk to him. And then we will keep going from there. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys on the market close. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.